All right, welcome to Mediocre My Brothers. I'm Jordan, your host, and you got Team Corey, Edwin, and Udon. Today we have our special on the PlayStation 2 hit game God of War. So, like before, we'll go around with our polls, and then we'll have Udon take us out with the breakdown. So the polls that we have is: what is your favorite God of War power? Was it A, Poseidon's Rage, B, Zeus's Fury, C, Medusa's Gaze, or D, Army of Hades? Winner was Army of Hades.
Unsurprising.
Yeah, it's overpowered. It's a very broken but very required power.
It's good. I just prefer Poseidon's Fury because it makes the combo meter like jack up really high when you have a bunch of shit around you, and gives me good juices in my brain.
Yeah, that's why I thought that would be the better one, and then I saw an Army of Hades. I'm just like, this is so much better.
Well, the trade-off is Army of Hades costs way more mana to use than the Poseidon's Fury does.
Yeah, but for some reason, every time I use Poseidon's Rage, like even like a group of monsters directly next to me, it's like every time I use that ability, it just pushes them all away from the lightning ring. So it's just like it hardly does anything.
When you level
upgrade
it up,
you gotta upgrade
really
it.
Good.
Then you like get to button mash circle, and then it's just like the fucking God of Thunder came down himself, which I still understand why it's like a lightning based attack when it's like Poseidon's Rage. I'm just like, I thought lightning was Zeus's thing, but all right. I don't understand that. It would have made sense if it was like a whirlpool or something, but for some reason it's just like generic lightning.
They're like, well, it's really hard to do water physics, so we're gonna go with lightning.
Yeah, I can give them that. That's what I thought of too. I'm like, it probably would have looked like shit if they tried to do that. All right. Anyways, we'll take it from the top, though. We'll get into more of those powers and whatnot. But yes, God of War, the one for the PlayStation 2 specifically. We're not talking about 2018. Before we jump into it, I guess we'll go around and have everyone's history on God of War, what they've played, what they haven't played. Jordan, what kind of God of War games have you played?
I played the first one for the PS2. I did try a little bit of the second one when they had the demo before it came out. I can't remember exactly how it was played, like how I got it, but I remember I played that. Never touched 3. I watched a friend play it and was losing his mind, which was hilarious to me. I kept watching like baby clips of a baby laughing and just piss him off. He would get so mad. And then of course, I played the most recent ones for I believe it was the PS3, the one and then the Ragnarok. That's basically the only ones that I have touched. I have not touched the Ascension or the Ghost of Sparta.
I think 2018 was for PS4. Maybe I'm crazy.
Okay. Yeah, PS4. Those are the only ones I've touched. I have not actually grabbed any of those PSP ones. I never touched those.
I don't think a lot of people have. Corey, what kind of God of War experience do you have?
I have played all of them,
including the PSP ones.
Yes, I've played it was a Chains of Olympus and Ghosts of Sparta. They're kind of like in between and like prequel sequels of 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Played Ascension. Ascension is okay. I know that one's kind of like the weakest one. Because it's like a weird story because they try to fit it in as like a prequel kind of, and then they added like this multiplayer aspect to it, which was kind of neat, but it definitely was not needed. It's one of those things where they just shoehorn a multiplayer and it kind of takes away from the main campaign. So I think that's where that comes from. And then like obviously the newer God of Wars, which are really cool, but a whole different play style than what this God of War in particular is. Like the first 3 they're just action. Well, everything prior to 2018 is just like an action game. It's kind of cool, but they somehow maintain like a pretty like interesting story. And with God of War 1, I think it's funny because it does have like a closed but open door ending to it. They didn't know if there was going to be that many later, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Kratos will return if the sales numbers justify it.
Yeah.
Edwin, how much God of War is in your blood?
Polar opposite of Corey. Literally nothing. This is the first God of War I've ever played.
You haven't even played the new ones?
No.
Damn.
I mean, I own the first new one, which is regular God of War, but it's like I never like actually played it like any like any decent amount. So I was like, but I never finished it. I asked Corey, I was like, hey, how long is this? I'm at this part, and he's just like, you barely even started. I was like, okay, well, I
Fuck you.
I guess it's not going nowhere.
Weak. I did it all in one sitting. I guess that comes to me. I am actually not much better than Edwin, to be honest. In fact, prior, like less than a year ago, probably at this point, when I bought my PS5, it came with Ragnarok, and I had never touched God of War prior to then. I knew about Kratos, I knew what the games were, but I'm also not a really big fan of action games, like God of War, Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, all those kinds of games that I'm not really a big fan of any of them. So when I got the PS5, it came with Ragnarok, and when I was putting games on my PS5, like the 2018 God of War was on sale on the PS Store for like $10, and I'm like, well, I have Ragnarok, I might as well grab that for $10 and get this like the new story essentially. And I really like 2018, and I absolutely fucking adore Ragnarok. It's like one of my favorite games ever. But I had never touched any of the original God of Wars, so this is the original God of War. I have never played it, and this is my first time doing so. I have mixed feelings about that as a whole, but we'll get to it. But anyway, so we have veterans, and we have noobs, and we have something in between here. So anyways, God of War, again, to reiterate, we are talking about the PS2 version. I specifically played it on PS2 on original hardware. I'm going to assume everyone else here probably played or watched the remastered God of War, yes?
I played the God of War 1 on the Anniversary Collection disc on PS3, which came with basically all of the games prior to Ascension as like a promotion.
And then Jordan, Edwin, did you guys also play / watch the remastered version with the nicer graphics?
No, I played the original.
Okay.
I looked at both, actually. I did watch the entire remastered version, and then while we were getting ready for this one, I was watching the original version to see the difference.
I didn't realize that they had remastered, or touched up the graphics when I was playing, because I was like, man, this is a good-looking PS2 game. It's got reflections, but the water looks like crap, so they didn't really do anything with the water. And then when it would go to, a cinematic, it would look worse than the gameplay. So, I mean, it'll be funny, because that's going to be playing in the background of, on the YouTube version of this episode in particular, because I have all the recordings of playing the entire game, so we'll be able to see that. But it's kind of funny, because I was like, man, this looks really good. Then goes to the cutscene, and you're like, oh, God.
Well, I played it on the original hardware with an HDMI converter on my PS2, and I thought it looked a little poopy. And then my process is that I played it, and then when I'm writing the outlines for these episodes, I was rewatching a Let's Play of it on YouTube to just remind myself of everything that happened in the game. And they were playing the remastered version. I'm like, damn, that looks like it doesn't want to make my eyes bleed. That looks really nice. It's a pretty decent remaster. Except for, I'll get to it, but I might be crazy, but I think in the remastered version they censored something that happens in Pandora's Temple. I might be completely insane, but I'm 99% sure there was something different in a certain area, but we'll get to that because I wrote it down. Anyways, yes, God of War was created by Santa Monica Studios. It's the same PS. To my knowledge, they've created all the mainline series. I don't think they did the PSP spin-offs, but to my knowledge, they've had their hand in the mainline series all the way up to Ragnarok, and they're still working on it. Published by Sony, it was released in March 22nd, 2005 for the PlayStation 2, and it was very well received for story, graphics, gameplay, 9 out of 10s across the board. The game was created and directed by David Jaffe, I believe that's his last name, who said he was highly inspired by Capcom's Onimusha game and wanted to do that, but with Greek mythology.
Fair enough.
Yeah, for real. But I mean, that's how inspiration works, right? It's like, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's do that. The game is a hack and slash, even though it's not like Dynasty Warriors hack and slash. It's more just straight up action game. Again, more akin to Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, about getting combos, and blocking is still important. You can't just mash square and win, sort of thing. And has a very few RPG and platforming elements as well. And of course, one of the premier things about it, especially when it first came out, it was an incredibly violent, bloody, gory game. There was many nasty executions from Kratos. let's see. So, at this beginning, God of War stars Kratos as the protagonist of the story. When you start the game opens quite bleakly as Kratos claims the gods have abandoned him and casts himself off a cliff into the ocean below in an obvious attempt to suicide. The narrator informs us that Kratos has been suffering from nightmares for 10 years and that this was the end of the road and nothing seemed to stop his nightmares, no matter what he tried. But before Kratos hits the water, we're hit with the 3 weeks earlier thing when he's in the Aegean Sea and learn that Kratos had once been a champion of the gods. And at this point, we're not meant to like know anything about Kratos. He's just an incredibly pale man with some sick red tattoos. And the whole point of the game, like the main story of the game, is basically just learning his backstory as the game goes on. Which, weirdly enough, we really don't get any of until probably a quarter of the way through the game.
Yeah.
But so when we flash back to 3 weeks earlier, we're just thrown into the action immediately. Kratos is on a wrecked ship in the rain, and you're being assaulted by, I don't know if these things have a specific name. I just call them zombie soldiers. I guess they're like the army of the dead, like Hades, shit like that. But
you're talking about the Hydra.
No, well, we'll get there. But yeah, you're just thrown in, and you get how tutorials work in this game. You're given the easy pop-ups, just saying press this to do this, press this to do this, and you're just sent to attack waves of these zombie Hades soldiers. Just playing with your buttons, mainly square and circle to grab for just grabs and slashes. And I think the way Kratos' weapons is, the Blades of Chaos, your first weapon, it's kind of unique in as far as action games go, because it's a weapon that like has a really wide AoE effect. Like Kratos slashes everywhere when he attacks. There's a lot of AoE is like really important in this game because every fight's just like a huge horde of things surrounding you. Let's see. You can knock enemies in the air, you can juggle them with aerial attacks, you can throw them around, you can rip in half. There's a lot of crazy shit Kratos can do with his basic moveset. When enemies die, they drop they're red orbs or blood orbs. That's this game's version of experience points, essentially. That's a resource that Kratos can use to level up his abilities later in the game. And then after the player is given some time just to play around with the basic controls, you're prompted to open up a hatch on the ship, which a lot of interactables in this game are interacted with by like holding or tapping right trigger, kind of annoyingly. But anyways, they open up the hatch. You get to see your first chest, which introduces the player to chests of health that are going to be your main source of healing throughout the game. There's other ways to heal, but this is like every time you see a chest, it's like a checkpoint full heal, essentially. Blah, 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 blah. As you go lower into the ship, we are met by the first Hydra head. What else is this thing supposed to be? You're not told it's the Hydra till later, but this is Greek mythology. What else is a giant monster in the sea supposed to be? Guess except for maybe the Kraken, I suppose. But in here, you're kind of like given like a really mini tutorial on how kind of boss fights work. You're given a boss health bar, but the Hydra head does like one attack. You're taught how to block. And as you're doing damage to this thing, you're also taught the infamous QTE button prompt segments that are going to pop up throughout the entire game as like a main gameplay mechanic. By pressing buttons in time, you do massive damage to bosses or execute low health regular trash mobs. As a side note, the game does feature fixed camera perspectives. You have very little control over the camera. Not so fixed like in Resident Evil where they're like completely static. The cameras do follow Kratos to an extent, but you're at the mercy of whatever angle the camera decides to show you. And then after fending off the Hydra head, you're introduced to probably one of the worst goddamn things about this game is the balance beam mechanic. Don't know who was high at work that day that decided that was really fun, but that's something we're going to have to deal with the entire game. To where Kratos and his dainty little feet have to just balance beam across these little boards across this really tiny gap, which I'm 99% sure you could just jump it if you wanted to. Oh, and to get to the Hydra, you had to. I was actually confused at this part. To actually get to that Hydra head, you have to break a wall in the ship, which doesn't seem interactable at all. I mean, the player will probably flail around and realize it's breakable, but it was kind of confusing. Yeah, exactly. You go down there and you're like, where am I supposed to go? And then you just kind of flail and you realize your attacks are doing something to the wall, so you hit it a few more times and it breaks, and you're like, oh. That doesn't happen too much in the game, but it is something that will come back. Oh, and to go back to the balance beam segments, this is like the tutorial balance beam, so if you fall, you just fall into water and have to go back to the beginning of the beam, whereas like pretty much every single time after this, falling off that beam means instant death, which I think was like the responsible of like 95% of my deaths in this game. Kratos goes forward after the Hydra head and is confronted by a trapped man on the boat, and he refuses to be saved by Kratos as he claims to know who he is and what he has done, and also sidelining, revealing us that Kratos is a Spartan, a historically hyper-militaristic culture of warriors. Going past Kratos finds a red chest, this one containing a large quantity of the red orbs needed to level skills. I already said that. And this is the primary way of getting these things, is by these chests is where you're going to get most of your experience points. You still get them from killing enemies, but the red chests are by far like way more juicy in terms of the amount you get. Soon Kratos is back outside of the deck of the ship, fighting off a horde of harpies, a new enemy, weak but they're pretty weak and annoying, but you usually have to fight them in like incredibly large numbers, where they're all just going to like peck at you from all different sides. Kratos fights them off as they tear what remains of the crew of the ship apart. Kratos is again attacked by a Hydra head as a mini-boss battle occurs again. This time, this head has a couple different attack patterns, again, just kind of like spoon-feeding you how these like giant battles are going to work, despite them really not showing up too frequently through the game. Kratos defeats the Hydra head and with no other way forward plunges into the hole the boat that the head had made. Again, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do, and I was just like, do I go in the hole? And sure enough, you're supposed to go in the hole that it made. Again, not really a whole lot. I mean, the only thing indicating you're supposed to go in there is that there's no other way to go, and you're just like, don't trust this might kill me. Let's see. Fighting across through more zombie soldiers, Kratos must pass another balance beam segment, and with a small side path leading to a red chest, showing that small optional side areas will have power-ups or pickups, and the more I watch the guys who actually know how to play this game, made me realize how much shit I missed going through this game. They're pretty good at hiding, like, just little bonuses throughout the levels that are just right off the main path, but hidden enough that you just can barely see it or don't know how to get to it. Heading over to the other boat, Kratos finds more sailors being attacked by the zombie soldiers, but now they have bows. The player is then required to push a box, this introducing the pushing and pulling mechanic along with the kick push feature, in order to get more leverage on the opposite side to reach the archers. However, the box will break after sustaining too much damage and revert to its spawn point. The archers rain down arrows this whole time with rather decent aim and speed to where opportunities to move the box without either you or the box getting hit is kind of hard. Like, the rhythm to these archers is like really awkward. It's not just like they all fire and then give you a pause. It's like some of them fire, small pause, and some of them fire, small pause, some of them fire, small pause. The first time I played this, I think that fucking box broke probably like 10 or 12 times on me. It was really annoying.
Yeah, they were way more consistent than you'd expect in a different game.
Exactly. It's like they weren't auto-aiming onto you, but their aim is way better than you would have expected to be at this point in the game.
It gets worse.
It gets much worse. Yep. Moving puzzles like this also reappear many times as the game goes on. When Kratos gets to the box to the other side of the ship, he learns to use his double jump, and when I say learns, just the game tells you to. You could have done this the entire time. He's able to reach and dispatch the archers. Moving past, Kratos hears cries of help from the other side of a locked door, pleading for him to find the key. I'm 99% sure Kratos could probably rip that wooden door off its hinges if he tried, but whatever. Yeah. Kratos then must climb the mast, again, climbing being a mechanic, a really stupid, boring mechanic that does turn the combat into just mash square to win. It's very slow, and they just throw enemies at you to just make it take longer. Anti-attack rest, combat, blah, 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 I just said all that. Once he has ascended to the top, Kratos must balance his way across to a rope that extends to yet another ship. Here he finds a chest that contains a Gorgon's Eye, a collectible that once enough are found will increase Kratos' max health significantly. In the ship, Kratos finds a large, shimmering door, and when interacting with it, Kratos speaks with Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea. The dialogue reveals that Kratos is heading to Athens, but that he must slay the Hydra before doing so. He then gifts Kratos Poseidon's Rage, a large AoE. Again, I wrote lightning in question mark because I don't understand why lightning. Power that does heavy damage to enemies around him, which complements your already AoE chains, even AoE electric fuckfest move. This is the first of several god weapons Kratos will get to use throughout the game. This move is a good way to help build Kratos' combo meter, a minor mechanic that rewards the player with extra red blood orbs when completing a high chain of hits. Armed with the power of the gods, Kratos continues to ascend the shipwreck, now having a mana bar underneath his health and is a resource used to power his god abilities, and is replenished primarily by opening blue chests. When he reaches the top of the current ship, Kratos confronts the three primary heads of the Hydra as it consumes what is left of the crew, including the one possessing the key to the door Kratos wanted to unlock previously. Thus, the real boss fight with the Hydra finally starts, with two smaller heads on the lower deck fighting Kratos with the same moves as before, but pulling him back and forth to each head. Once their health is gone, Kratos must move a platform with a spear on it and have it fall and impale the head to kill it permanently, or it will get back up with its health regenerating, something that I had to find out the hard way. With those dealt with, Kratos can ascend to the mast area of the mast, fucking top of the stupid sails. And fight the larger head, having different attacks and able to blow Kratos back off the platform. Kratos must pass a series of QTE segments at certain damage intervals to kill the creature, and impale the last head on the entire mast itself. When the player finishes the last QTE, the Hydra is finally slain, and Kratos is able to enter the creature to obtain the key from the sailor before just unceremoniously dropping him into the dead monster's stomach, which is the slow way to die. Yeah. Kratos now makes his way back to the locked door, fighting a few monsters on the way there. Upon opening the door, however, Kratos discovers all the people that had cried for help before were already dead. This reminds Kratos of his own violence past, one that haunts him, and we are given a few teasing shots of his past. Nothing of any context, just shots of cutscenes we'll get more context for later. We are told by the narrator that Kratos endlessly sails the seas in service to the gods of Olympus, hoping somehow that in doing so they would help him end his misery and regret. Kratos is shown to drown out his horrors with wine and women, but nothing could let him escape his past. So, that is in its entirety what is essentially the tutorial level for the entire game. Is just everything having to deal with this Aegean Sea, jumping from boat to boat. So again, we'll just have a round table, see how everyone felt about the first tutorial level. This game is hard to divide into levels because we go from this to Athens to Pandora's Temple, and then we're back in Athens and the game's over. And then Hades is somewhere in there. But Jordan, how do you feel about this first tutorial level? Do you think it was good enough, too much, what?
I actually think it was actually quite simple, really. I mean, there was really no real wording at all when it was telling you specifics on how you were supposed to use your moves. Like, you would just say triangle, heavy attack, square, light attack. Just very simple, getting you right to it. There'd be a couple here and there, like when you try to walk across the fun beam and then you trip and it's like, hey, push X to get yourself back up. You're going to be all right. And you're like, no, it's not going to be all right because the guy's got fucking slippy feet and he just trips all over the goddamn place. The God of War is he has no balance whatsoever, but he can just do all this other crazy shit. It's just he is never good at balance. But, going through with it, it's a lot of walking around, of course, just like with any game, but it's very simple, the battle system. There's nothing really complex about it. Like you were saying, you can go around and get yourself the red orbs. You just do square and triangle, basically, until you start getting newer moves as you go out throughout the game. And then the first boss you fight, very simple. You just take the hints of when he's ready to attack, it pulls back, and you got to block, and then you start attacking, and then when you start getting the more complex battles, the only one that I'd say probably was giving you probably the most trouble was that when you're trying to push that stupid wooden block on the ship to get to the other side to jump on the net, and if you're not careful, those archers can break your box, and you got to fucking start all over, and then you got to redo it all over again to finally get up there and kill them. But that's the only one that I thought was the most painful part if you weren't really sure how to go with that. But the Hydra was very simple. You fight all the two side heads, get that little spike thing to drop down and kill it, and then you finish off the last one, which depending upon how you go about it, I was watching somebody that how they were playing was that they would wait for them to strike, and as soon as they did, they'd use Poseidon's Fury and lock them in, and then they would just keep doing that repeatedly, and eventually could kill the Hydra that way. But it was a very simple walk around of the level, kind of getting yourself ready. There was nothing really complex about it. It was just very easy, simple to get you started to play the real game.
Yeah, I agree with you. The fucking box segment had me wanting to pull what's left of my hair out after a while, because I'm just like, oh, great. We're in the tutorial level, and we're already dealing with this kind of bullshit. I can't wait for the rest of the game. Also, with the death of the Hydra, congratulations! You've beat 1/3 of the bosses in this entire game. Spoiler alert. Yeah, using the Poseidon's Fury. I mean, the powers are very satisfying to use, and they use a lot of magic, but they're really effective on bosses and enemies. They really entice you to actually use those moves and just press square or triangle the entire time. There's very few segments in this game that like branch out more or less with quote unquote like choices of where to go. Most of the game is like really, really straightforward, and I think that's really well exemplified by this level. It's not necessarily on rails, but once you like, there's one way to go typically, and if there's not, there's only two, and they like loop back on each other. The game's really hard to get lost in. And to point out something, we aren't going over every single fucking combat encounter. How I've written this is that we're basically hitting all the high points of the game, because between every point of the game, there's just a bunch of enemies between here and there. I'll talk about new enemies. I'll talk about any encounters that are noteworthy, but for the most part, it's just like if Kratos is going from point A to point B, just expect that there's shit to hit, because I mean, I can only say, and then there was things that Kratos killed, and then so many times before it's going to drive me insane. Yeah. So anyways, having that laid out, Corey, how do you like the first level?
I really enjoyed it. I like the ship. It really like shows the drama of like what you're about to get into, because it's like raining, the stormy weather. You're fighting this giant snake or Hydra guy, and I was very because it's been a while since I've played this game. Guys, like last time I played it was 2005, so I kind of had like a different like idea on what it was, but the gameplay is very fluid, surprisingly enough. So it was like I beat this game in the first week of this month because I didn't want to stop playing it because I was enjoying myself all the way up until like a certain point, and we'll get to.
I was enjoying myself as opposed to every other time we do this when I'm not enjoying myself.
But like the game's like combat is really fun to do, and I like these types of games anyways. Like I've played all the Bayonettas and Devil May Cry's and stuff like that, but I didn't realize that it was like a flowing narrative level layout. I thought it was literally like level 1, level 2. So I was like, dang, I'm just going, and the boss fight's really fun. It is kind of weird that there's only 3 in the game, but like I thought the design of the Hydra's cool. It's very visceral, but very satisfying. Like they nailed like the zoom up when you're like, tearing the dude in half or whatever. So it's like I know how to play it. I played all of the God of Wars, so I didn't really just skip through the tutorials. Like I don't care. But that box part is annoying. There's like a lot of little gameplay things that they do that I'm like, I'm so glad that doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, it's really fast because the game doesn't take too long to beat. I think it took me about 6.5 hours to do it. So this section to really kind of go, this is what the game is going to be. So buckle up. They kind of nail everything that you're going to experience in just different ways as you go. So I think it did a good job of like getting you ready for what's coming. But yeah, it's also strange too because you don't really know. Like I thought they would introduce the story elements a little differently, but you're just kind of thrown into it, and you'll figure it out, I guess, as it goes. And it's like, okay, because it's a very much working backwards story.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right. I mean, I already know this, but I'm waiting for these events to take place, and they take place in way different places than I thought they would. So, But overall, I mean, I like the ship level. I think it was done really well. and it's very quick. I think it takes about 30 minutes to get through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. That's why I said it's like this is the most leveliest level of the entire game, because most of the rest of the game, there's no like hard cuts between like set pieces. Like very rarely there is. This is just a perfect little microcosm of what you can expect for the rest of the game. And the game is not that long. Again, probably unlike every time we've done a monthly game and we've like broke the record for how long we've been on, this is probably going to be the one breaking that streak, because there just simply isn't as much to talk about as there is in the other game. Because ultimately, this game is really simple. That's not an insult. It's just it's simple. It has a level for you to go through, and you kill shit and you just go. The puzzles aren't that hard. You're not going to be stuck on these things forever and ever trying to figure them out.
My favorite.
Yeah.
Technically, there's only like one puzzle in the like entire game that's like kind of crazy to do, but it's a very long-winded puzzle.
I mean, the most puzzliest puzzle is until like the last quarter of the game, at least in my mind. Nothing's really hard. I mean, the game's not long, because when I played it, I probably started it at like, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening on a weekend, and I just stayed up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I played it all in one sitting, and I was going in blind. I only had to consult the internet for like 2 things, and it was more like things that's like, I think I'm doing the right thing, but am I doing it the wrong way? Which I was right on both accounts. I was doing the right thing, but the wrong way. But yeah, Edwin, as never playing God of War, how did you feel about the first tutorial level?
I just find it funny. I was like, oh, it's like I'm gonna jump off a cliff, and then I was like going back. I was like just yelling on a sinking ship at dead people. I just found that kind of funny. But the combat, I was like, I've seen like clips of like how God of War is played, but like actually playing it myself was a much different experience than what I honestly thought it would be. Was always like my favorite part of what this series does, just the execution. Though I don't really like the fact that it's like just button mashing. It feels like it's incredibly repetitive. But it's like I also don't like the fact that it's like I'm pretty sure I was playing it wrong in the beginning, but it's like I'm constantly surrounded, and it's kind of weird that such a strong like basically demi-human or demigod. It's like just constantly getting stun locked by a bunch of enemies and can barely just take a hit without like going into in my opinion, a much too long animation of just bouncing on the ground after taking a hit is just incredibly annoying when he can like pull Hydra heads onto spikes of ships. I just found that incredibly annoying to actually witness. But like the whole level was kind of confusing. Like the wall that you don't know you need to break. The only reason that I noticed was like, I guess I'm supposed to break this because I noticed like the wood chippings falling off. That was the only hint that I had. But it took so many hits that I started to question myself halfway. I was like, I don't think I can destroy this, but I did anyway. And then I've never seen Kratos swim. So when you defeat that first Hydra head, I went back and forth like 4 times, and I kept talking to that guy who trapped himself in a cage, just trying to get past the story. It's like, I don't know where to go. And I was like, oh, you're supposed to jump down, but I didn't know Kratos could actually swim. I thought that was just instant death, like you said before.
Yeah. I mean, technically, in a lot of games that we've played prior to this, like they just use water as an instant death on a platform, anyways. So you're kind of been trained by other games to just don't do that.
Pretty much.
It's like this is an older game, so it's just like I was like I don't play like a lot of older games like this one, and I never played this one, obviously. So it's like I don't know if like it was like I've never even played a new one. It's like if you swim in those, I guess I would have had a better idea. I was like, I guess I can swim in this.
Nope, can't swim in those. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. You and me seem to have got like just temporarily stuck on 2 similar parts: the fucking Hydra hole and the stupid barrier you're supposed to break down. Once you learn those things, though, you're just like, oh, that's a thing I can do, so I know that for the rest of the game. And the whole, like, getting stun locked sometimes, I agree with you. It's kind of the reason why I don't like action games too much. An action game, when played perfectly, is amazing, but, like, for me, it's the same thing with Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, it's like with Sonic the Hedgehog. You're playing Sonic, and you're going fast, and you fucking hit a wall or a fucking spike trap or something, and then you just stop all momentum, and all the fun just leaves my body. It's the same thing with when I'm playing action games like that, because I just want to be really aggressive, but then you also have to be really defensive in order to like not get hit. I don't know. I don't find them crazy fun. Not that I didn't like the combat in this game. I did, but probably towards like the end of the game is when it started like really souring for me. The more difficult things got and the more hits things took to kill. I was inserting a lot of my own thoughts as I was reading this. But I think it's a pretty decent tutorial level, other than the goddamn box segment, and that thing was just foreshadowing for a bunch of other bullshit you're going to have to deal with similar to that in the rest of the game.
I know exactly the terrible one.
Yeah, it's fucking. This game has some bullshit. It really do. Other than that, though, I kind of like it. I do kind of like getting a bit more Kratos, because again, my favorite part about 2018 and Ragnarok is the story. It's a fantastic story, and I always wanted to play these old games to like see if there was like seeds of what like basically seeds of having Kratos reasonably going on a redemption arc in the new games. And just from that little bit, you could already tell he regret what he did. And I was like, oh, he was, because in my mind before that, I didn't know anything about Kratos. I thought Kratos was just big, angry Spartan man, yells and kills everything with no remorse whatsoever. But he's a bit more complicated than that, and I really like that about him. Even way back in the first game, there was hints that this could be a thing, a redemption arc for him. But anyways, so after the Aegean Sea, we were treated to another cutscene of him being on his boat. So, fed up at last, Kratos cries out for Athena, the goddess of wisdom, shouting at a statue of her on his ship that he uses to communicate with her. He angrily claims to have faithfully served the gods for 10 years and asks what it will be enough for him to finally enough for them to finally rid him of his nightmares. There we go. Athena responds that the gods have one final task for him, one that awaits him in Athens. Ares, the current god of war, because as of right now, Kratos is not a god. They keep saying he's a mortal man, and they're lying, but they keep calling him immortal. But he's technically not the god of war, not yet. Is currently laying siege to Athens with the intent to destroy it. Zeus has prevented the gods from laying war on each other. I don't understand this line, because I don't understand how Ares destroying Athens doesn't count. I mean, yes, you're not slapping Athena directly, but I mean, okay, I guess the rules are very literal. And so ask Kratos to do so in her stead, and as you learn, all the other gods also kind of hate Ares, so everyone just wants you to murder the shit out of him. Kratos, including Zeus, by the way, the one who says the other gods shouldn't kill gods. Kratos asks that if he's able to kill a god, then will his visions finally end? Athena responds and saying that if he does complete this task, then the past that consumes him will be forgiven, and that the gods do not forget who come to their aid. Kratos accepts this and sets sail for Athens. I guess I'll wait for the quote-unquote twist here, but I mean, I called what was going to happen at the end of the game right here based on this dialogue alone. It was really obvious. Kratos is kind of really dumb in this part, but we'll get to that later, I suppose. So he sails his boat to Athens, and he is in the port of Athens, and you are in your ship with two sexy ladies with their boobles out on his bed, because that's like the only thing on this ship. There's just like him, a bed, wine, and women.
He's a simple man.
He's a simple man. Hilariously, you can have a sex mini game with them and you get a little chunk of fucking blood orbs.
You can,
and also yes, you can. If you go to the bed,
turn around.
Yeah, if you turn around, press circle, you can have a sex mini game where you do a QTE segment. You get a good chunk of orbs.
Yeah, nothing happened. I kept talking to them, but it's just like just get out of my ship, get out of my ship, get out of my ship.
That was also funny when you go to Stowe, he's like, they're like, Kratos, come back to bed. And he's like, we are in port, get off the ship. And I'm just like, if I were her, I'm not going the fuck anywhere. There's monsters out there. Fuck that shit.
That's funny. Currently in this hellscape, no.
It's currently exploding right now. You want me to go over there? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll stay right here. Thank you.
Kratos, I have a headache. We can't. Not today.
Yeah, not today. Also, as a side note, the save system in this game is like most older games. There's like save points you get, just little pills of light that you activate to save your game. There's lots of checkpoints, like hidden checkpoints in the game. So even though there's a lot of bullshit deaths, I don't think I was ever set back more than like a minute or two at max, I think. Except for one fucking segment at the very end. We'll get to that. Blah, 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 blah. Quickly off the ship, Kratos is confronted by more zombie soldiers, but these ones are bigger and are more heavily armored, and they're not flinched by Kratos' attacks as easily. So this is introducing a mechanic that, well, we're going to encounter, like, we're going to get new enemies as the game goes, but all the older enemies in the newer areas get stronger and stronger with, like, bigger attacks, bigger weapons, more health to, like, kind of keep up with Kratos' like increase of power as you get those blood orbs. Let's see. Kratos also has access to a super form, his Spartan Rage, which is basically just an ability that I don't know if it makes you invincible, but I know for a fact it makes you do a fucking ass ton more damage for a very limited amount of time. It does take a really long time to charge back up, but it's a very useful ability, just nuking bosses. Let's see.
It takes forever to charge, and I didn't know till the very end. It was like, oh, it also gives you infinite magic.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one, especially with Army of Hades, because then you're just like, I hit the I win button. So in the port of Athens, there's a little side area he can go through with a chest containing a phoenix feather. Phoenix feathers work like the Gorgon eyes. When you collect enough of them, you get your magic bar gets a permanent increase. Looking around, Kratos finds a large elevator-like platform to a catwalk where he encounters the large Minotaur enemies for the first time. These enemies possess much larger health pools than the zombie soldiers and do a lot more damage. They also possess high flinch resistance to flinching from attacks. I don't know, that's really redundant. Why'd you write it like that? Executing one will give Kratos a small amount of health back, having to be weakened first, and then executed with a button mash QTE, which again is introducing the player to this like execution mechanic that will become really important throughout the rest of the game. And for enemies like the Minotaur and like other ones, doing this execution move will net you resources, so you're incentivized to do them rather than just killing them outright. These QTEs get much harder as the game goes on. Like the timing becomes a lot tighter, especially for the ones that aren't just button mashing, that are actually QTEs where it's like different like circle, different buttons you have to press and like controller stick movements. Let's see. Ascending another elevator, Kratos is in a courtyard where he fights a Cyclops for the first time. I don't know if these things are Cyclopses. I couldn't really see their face, but they're just giant lumbering enemies, and that was the closest thing I could think of to Greek mythology, so I'm assuming they're Cyclopses.
Yeah, they are.
Ogres.
Yeah, I was calling them ogres too, but I'm like, it's probably a Cyclops because that's a lot more Greek.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cyclopses, we don't find a lot of them in the game, but they're basically just Minotaurs, just times two. Big, large enemies, lots of health, can do a lot of damage, but their attacks are really well telegraphed, and you can also execute these ones. This one's an actual QTE where you have to press certain buttons in the right order. The buttons on these QTEs, by the way, are always random, so you can't just automatically press the buttons like you memorize it every time. It's random. And especially with these fucking ogres, the QTE, like, the timing of it gets super, super short way later in the game.
It is funny that the first QTE is just a punch in the dick.
Pretty much. And unlike the Minotaurs, though, executing the trolls just lets you kill them sooner and just rewards you with a bunch of blood orbs. Blah, 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 blah. Past them, Kratos is in a room full of crates, only having to smash a few to make a path to the platform across. Jesus Christ. Just past this little area is another god door where he speaks to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, who offers him another new power, but he asks to slay Medusa to earn it. Kratos has a mini-boss fight with Medusa, introducing another new enemy type, because after Medusa there'll be more of her, but they're just called Gorgons. Later, and she is shown to possess multiple attacks and a ranged stun move with her little eyeball beams, which is kind of lame because you don't have to look at her. As long as you're like in the cone of vision, it'll turn you to stone, even if you're not looking at her, which is lame, but whatever. And they move really fast, and they're kind of hard to flinch. Medusa, and by extension the Gorgons' execution QTEs are different in that they primarily incorporate control stick movements as inputs rather than buttons. And what I mean by that is that when you execute a Minotaur, you just smash circle all the time. When you're executing a Cyclops, you might have to press like square, triangle, circle, X, or any combination of those buttons. And then with Medusa, though, I don't believe you press any buttons at all, and instead you are asked to like go from like do a half turn to the left or right from down or up with your control stick, or do like a full rotation. Like it's completely random, those as well, where you have to move the control stick. And at first isn't bad. Later in the game, when those timings become really, really difficult, for me personally, I took a lot of fucking unnecessary damage trying to do an execution, but my brain can't process an image on the screen for 0.3 seconds and then also be asked to execute the button maneuver. But anyways. Killing Medusa rewards Kratos with Medusa's Gaze, which can turn enemies to stone and are able to be killed much easier as a result. The player then needs to kill a few waves of Minotaurs with the Medusa head before being able to continue. In the next room, Kratos uses a ballista to break down a barrier to proceed, showing such an object is able to do something like that and will be reused later. There is, again, rewatching this, I was like, man, there's a lot of ballistas in this game. This is a thing that's just everywhere. After climbing, what the fuck? God damn it. I somehow have bad handwriting when I'm typing shit by just putting shit out of order. Moving past the now broken blockade, Kratos enters to another climbing segment. Nothing of note other than the boring gameplay this provides. I really don't like these climbing segments. They're so meaningless. I just go to sleep and get through them. After climbing, Kratos is on a ledge behind a tall statue that he kicks down in order to make a platform to reach the opposite building. Kratos battles a few of the Gorgons here, where he can learn executing them will give back a small amount of mana. Fighting his way up this building, he finds a ballista that fires a rope to a different area from the building, again, the one you just came from, and must now hang across the rope, another traversal mechanic very similar to climbing, as it trivializes combat and seems very game padding. So Kratos monkey bars his way across the rope to the opposite side. Going down, he finds a bloody hallway and opens the door to reveal a familiar hallway leading back to the first ballista. Now Kratos has removed the metal door from its path, and the ballista can break the door beyond that one, but also letting loose a small horde of Minotaurs first. Following the hallway, Kratos comes to a large bridge that leads to a cutscene where Kratos meets a projection of the Oracle of Athens, instructing him to find her temple to the east, and she can show him how to murder a god. When Kratos finishes crossing the bridge, he sees the full form of Ares as he wreaks destruction on the armies of Athens, an absolute gigantic monster. I really thought the scale was awesome in the game. Like, you see him way in the distance. Like, you see how far he is and still how large he is, and you're just like, I'm supposed to kill that?
It's just Godzillaing in the background.
Pretty much. Also, I don't know how he hasn't already destroyed the city, because he's just kind of like, I don't know why are you fucking around? You're like the size of 3 Godzillas standing on their shoulders. Like, you just kick everything over and be done with it.
Just lay on the ground and roll.
Pretty much. He's so big. Like, you see people shooting shit at him, but they should all die within 5 minutes. Kratos comments on him not being intimidated by the sight, because that's how much of a chat he is. Claimed to have not forgotten him and what he did that night, and promising to make Athens his grave. This clearly points to Kratos having some personal beef with Ares we are unaware of at this point. Heading east, Kratos finds a chamber that seemingly upgraded Minotaur enemies. These Minotaurs are a different color and carry bigger weapons. Like, the past Minotaurs only carried axes. These ones carry a hammer and an axe. So they have more health and do more damage. They also have some bullshit AoE move that's kind of hard to avoid. So you move into the Athens streets. It's basically a straight line, but there's lots of little nooks and crannies with little bonuses inside the buildings and stuff. Slaying a bunch of enemies as you make your way up the streets. After a few enemy encounters, Kratos gets to a segment that asks the player to swing across ropes to reach a ledge on the other side of a gap that is too high for Kratos' jump. This mechanic, while reused, is not seen often in the game, and outside of a few instances where you're being shot at while doing so, offers very little in terms of gameplay. This leads Kratos to the town square of Athens, where he will fight an upgraded version of the Cyclops, one with much more health than the previous one. In this fight, civilians run around the arena, in which Kratos can just murder the shit out of the random civilians to get health back, which is a little fucked up. Kratos has to fight off several waves of these Cyclopses before being allowed to proceed. And I think we'll stop there for now, because again, it's hard to like section off this because we're just in Athens for a while until we're just not in Athens anymore. Our primary goal being set now, we have to reach this Oracle lady. So how did you, Jordan, how do you feel about the first part of Athens? Like, how are you feeling about combat at this point? How do you feel about the Medusa's head? How do you feel about the new enemies with the Minotaurs, the Medusas, the Cyclopses? How do you feel about all that?
I actually enjoyed it. There was, the idea that you were not just doing fighting those stupid those zombie army soldiers and the harpies, obviously, when you play enough of those, you kind of get tired of it. So they added you another bunch of enemies to go about, and these were a lot more challenging just because of what they could do. You're fighting the Minotaurs; they can actually parry your shit sometimes, or they can break your attack bar if you're like trying to attack them. So you gotta be kind of smart about it. And then you've got those. I don't know, like how you guys said, if they're like Cyclops or some sort of ogre-looking dudes, and they got the giant spike balls on their hands, so you're like trying to go through the motion of killing them, and each one of those has like a move that where you weaken them, you push circle, and then you start doing that button mashing thing. We're not button mashing, but you're doing the sequence of pushes of buttons to do a cool move. So you're ripping them apart, or you're doing some sort of weird thing where you're pushing his hand out of the way and you're driving the knife down his throat, killing the Minotaur. Or you're just jumping around, swinging around, and then killing the ogre. Then you're going through with the Gorgons, where you're basically, or the Gorgon girl with Medusa, where you tear her head off. I was like, good lord. And then you start using her powers against those enemies and such. It was a whole huge change in how you were battling from just being a regular hack and slash to now you're actually able to do some sort of button thing where it's kind of changing up how everything was going. And then, that really cool part where you see Ares for what, like the true size of who he is amongst men, and you're just like, holy crap, that is a huge sight to see. And so you're basically getting yourself ready because you're trying to figure out yourself, how are you going to kill that thing in the future of this game. So it kind of like gets you amped up when you hear how he responds to that. Like, this is nothing. I'll eventually kill you. Just give me time, basically, and then I'll make it happen. So it was actually a pretty cool deal. There was really not much of problems. Everything was pretty simple, just jumping around like you normally do to get to your next part of Athens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. At this point, I was still having a good amount of fun with the game. There's like, as I explained, there's really not a lot of puzzles in this segment, just a lot of fucking fighting and introducing a lot more enemies we're going to see throughout the rest of the game. Bigger, tougher enemies I have a problem with, just as in action games in general. I like being able to hit stuff and like, if I'm hitting something, I don't want that thing to be able to hit me back. If I'm going to get hit by something, I want to be hit by something that I'm not hitting. I think, I don't play action games very much, but I think the execution mechanic, especially incentivizing the player to try and take advantage of it, since a lot of the enemies offer them resources once you do an execution, was really good. Just incentivizing them to use it rather than just swing, and not doing the cool executions. It's a little awkward sometimes with the executions because, especially with like the Minotaur and stuff, Kratos, every time he grabs them, like him and the model of the enemy move because they have to be in the same exact position every time relative to the camera in order to do the QTE. It has to look the same every time, so they'll just like randomly spin in place so they're in the right position.
It's weird looking.
Yeah, it's really weird looking. It's a little jarring sometimes, but what was I saying? Oh yeah, the awkward camera angles with the executions, but you are still incentivized to do them. But with my personal experience, maybe they fixed it in the remaster, but in the original, I was having a lot of like, especially with like the Minotaur enemies, sometimes when you have like the big circle above their heads, and I'm like, I'm hitting circle, grab him. Why aren't you grabbing him? I'm getting hit. Why aren't you grabbing him? Kratos, come on. It's kind of aggravating when you're trying to pull off an execution. The game is just like, nah, I don't feel like it.
I had the same issue, but I realized like, they just have to be stunned or like on the ground for the Minotaur specifically. It's just a very specific thing that it doesn't tell you. It's like, oh, some of them are like like their guard is high, so you gotta like push them down or push them away or stun them to where their heads are bombing.
Yeah, something like that.
Very specific.
So, Corey, how do you feel like I guess I'll call this like it's either 1/3 of Athens or the half of Athens, I guess. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, like the way they handle like this is your first kind of like go at the game's level design, and as we continue through Athens, this will just become more true. But there is a lot of like backtracking in a sense, but you're kind of led in loops. So you're like you see a door, you end up going in it, running around, doing some stuff, and then you're higher up in that same area, and like you go to push the statue or whatever kind of thing, and then you're back in that area, but now there's a different way to go. And so they kind of have this like very interesting, like small level, but they make use of all of it. I think that because this part is just like all combat, like it's really fun. It felt awesome because you're just like shoving the knife into the freaking Minotaur and you feel like it because you're like plowing the circle button. It does get old though as the game goes, especially because you're fighting like 4 of them and it's like, oh my god, you guys, your health wall is crazy. But like overall, like visually, it's not as like dramatic as the ship because there's not a lot going on. But that reveal is like of Ares walking around the background kind of reminds me of like the FromSoft games when they do those reveals where you come out of like a cave or whatever, and it's like, check this cool thing out that we want you to see. So you like walk around the corner and you just see him just stomping on these people in the background, and it's just like, oh, that's pretty dope. Like, you know, even though it's like it makes the area that you're in feel very large and alive, but like the level itself is very tight, and that's kind of nice because, you know, the limitations, they're just totally maximizing the use of space in this game and in this area in general is not complicated to navigate, and with all the hallways and stuff with like this fixed camera, like I never really was battling with the camera. So that's kind of a nice thing, but there is some parts of the game where I'm just like, I can't even see them, so this is not fair. But I didn't have that issue with this level at all. And yes, there's a lot of ballistas. And just for like reference, I have a long play that's running right now that's like running at like, you know, 2 times speed or whatever. And there's a lot of secrets that I just totally just missed.
Yes, and they're not very like far off the path. They're just pretty well hidden. That's what I was looking at when I was writing down the outline too. I'm like, damn, I missed a lot of chests, all these Gorgon eyes and stuff. They're just off the path, but you have to like actually like think for a second, being like, huh, can I get over there? And you just try, and you're like, oh, there's a thing over here. I found a few of them playing by myself, but only a small handful.
And I thought I was doing well, but I was just like, I didn't even know you could break that.
Yeah, and when it comes to level design, I think I feel like they do this a lot, but they have like this like upward spiral kind of design where you're like going up and around a bunch of areas like in a big cylinder like air like kind of motion. Like you start at the bottom and work your way up and across, then back across and keep going up, and you're going into different areas and things. Like there's this, and then it happens a few times in Pandora's Temple. Yeah, I mean they really use their space when it comes to God of War. These levels aren't difficult. In fact, and when it comes to backtracking, you either like have some kind of shortcut to go back to wherever you were once you reach like the end of the path, or if you really have to backtrack, even though it's a little annoying if you directly have to go back the way you came, they usually like refill it with enemies, so you're just not walking and doing nothing. You just have like usually new enemies to fight on the way there, which can be annoying sometimes, especially when you're like, I just want this to be over already. I just killed a bunch of you. But
yeah, and I do enjoy the enemy designs. I think they're done really well. They're animated very well. The thing that's like, I got the Medusa's head and I just never use it. I don't know. I just never felt the need to use it. And I know that I can, and I think I tried it like a couple times, but eventually I just ignore it completely. And I just use the Poseidon's thing all the way through until I get to, you know, the Hades move that one to pull, basically.
Well, the Gorgon's head, at least, I only used it a little bit, but I feel like its primary use was being able to just like kill the enemies that are like either primarily the ones that move around a lot really fast because it freezes them in place. You don't have to whack them a few times. I use it a lot against the shade enemies we're going to see here soon. I use it a lot against that and the other Gorgons. Outside, yeah, but I agree. I probably my least used power, but I just used it for like really fast, annoying enemies I didn't want to feel like dealing with.
Yeah.
Edwin, how do you feel about like this first part of Athens?
I was like, after the tutorial, I immediately got skill checked because those basic enemies started like wrecking my shit really quickly. Especially since like if you don't pay attention enough, then they get a little jealous and then start doing their stupid like power wheel move where you just spin in the air like a Dark Souls skeleton, and it just pisses me off so much. But it's like. Also, I did find it weird. I was like, when you get further and you find those, and you fight those two Cyclops ogres, whatever they are. I find it weird that the metal ones have less health than the ones that are just fat and don't have any armor.
He's just naked, and it made him more powerful.
Yeah, it's monk rules. Less armor equals higher stats.
Pretty much, he had barbarian stats from D&D. No armor equals more health or more armor class.
Yeah, as well, and like after that, I was like, I had the same like annoyance with the climbing sections, which is just a bunch.
As I said, they're really boring. Just a bunch of nothing.
It's like a lot of nothing, but it's like every time you're climbing, it's just like, oh, you're climbing. Here's 20 enemies just following you. Yeah. It was like you don't have to fight them; you can just go around.
And like I said. Everything I'm describing, just also add, and then there's also a bunch of people trying to kill you during everything. All right, and
I mean, it's like there's a little bit. I was like capitalizing on that part that you were talking about, but this is a little bit more. But when I got to that area where you just see Ares fighting, I took what the Oracle said seriously. Well, when I'm saving the Oracle, that bitch just does not shut up. Every time it's like, Kratos, what are you doing? Come save me. I'm slipping. Fucking hurry up. It was like, I took my headphones off while doing that part, trying to save the Oracle because she was pissing me off so much. So I was just doing my own thing, and I just completely ignored her. But I was like, after that, when she tells you, like, oh, come see me at, like, come see me at my temple, and then when I get to Ares fighting on the battlefield, they're like, oh, the Oracle told me to go east. So I went right, assuming that was east, and then it was like, oh, it's just a door I can't get through because I need the Oracle, even though she fucking told me to go this way. So I was like, and it's just a long way, but it doesn't tell you you're not supposed to go that way. So it's just a time waster.
And to be fair, we don't have a compass. You could have been facing south or north. It doesn't matter.
I mean, it's like east. I went right, so it's like that
yeah,
was my logic.
Yeah, but if you're facing south, then or whatever.
But it's like
we're almost at that part, and I actually agree with you because that segment when she's bitching at you is one of the parts that like I was doing the right thing but not the right way, and she's just like, hurry up, and I'm just like, if you'd stop yelling, this would go faster.
Was that section before or after you see Ares on the battlefield?
It's after you see Ares.
Oh, whoops.
No, I mean, it's all right. You already said it. We're about to get there because this whole next section is about chasing the fucking Oracle. So
okay, I thought it happened before, and then she gets captured.
Nah, you're good. We're about to get there. So, anyways, I don't have much to add. I'm actually, in fact, I think just going forward, I'm just going to keep just intersplicing my own experience and my gripes when I'm explaining this, and also just interjecting, adding on to what all you guys say because I'm agreeing with pretty much 90% of what you guys are saying. I don't have much to say. I thought this was I was still having fun with the game. We haven't gone to a bunch of bullshit just yet. It was just pretty much a shit ton of fighting. But anyways, continuing forward. After dispatching the Cyclopses, Kratos travels past the town square and into the building beyond, following a woman trying to stay away from him. Kratos follows her to a set of stairs where she calls him a monster before falling over a balcony shortly after. The game showing the player there's something on her corpse to grab, and it's a really weird fucking sequence of events. It's like, stay away. It's just like, there was a railing there meant to prevent that. So you jump down from the balcony and grab a key from her corpse, and then you basically just backtrack all through that building you just ran through chasing her, which was empty when you were just there, but now it's full of shit, as happens a lot in this game. As I just said, direct backtracking in some areas where if you go through once and there's no enemies, it's like, oh boy, I'm going to have to come through here again. There's going to be shit everywhere.
Yeah.
So you fight through them all to get back to where you were up there and use the key on a little latch on one of the roofs. And blah, blah, blah. After playing blah, 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 blah. Now you're at the rooftops of Athens. Kratos then ascends to the roofs by climbing nearby buildings. Upon reaching the top, another new enemy is introduced. I don't know what it's actually called. I'm pretty versed. Well, yeah, I'm pretty versed in Greek mythology. Not like super into it, but I know a good bit. And I don't know if these things are supposed to be a certain like creature from Greek mythology. I just called them the Shade because they just remind me of Nocturne from League of Legends. While not especially tanking, these enemies will appear in and out of the ground and have a devastating multi-hit attacks where they just spin to win. They have blades for arms and they just spin. That's the enemy. Kratos must fight them along with more Cyclopses and other enemies. Kratos does not have to go far past here before encountering more shades and zombie soldiers in a courtyard beyond. Kratos is forced to fight them all, as occasionally the game will lock you into an area until all the enemies have been dealt with. Kratos proceeds past and is now in the rooftops proper now, having to use a combination of platforming, climbing, and swinging to navigate the many roofs of Athens, all the while fighting off enemies and being shot at by distant archers. And what I just said, that small paragraph, there's a lot of stuff that happens here, a lot of things you kill, but again, it's like, that's all it is. You just kill stuff. You just go around and you kill stuff. There's not a lot to, like, talk about, essentially. I'll expound more on my thoughts on, like, the nitty-gritty of, like, the actual combat system, but we'll talk about that probably when we're about to get into Pandora's Temple, because I feel like that would have been enough time to, like, really play around with the combat system to, like, find out what we like and don't like about it. Anyways. Level design, I already said this earlier, but the game is really straightforward. This rooftop area is a little bit open, but ultimately is still just like a looping area, and it's really hard to get lost. If you just look around for 2 seconds, you'll find out where you're supposed to go. Eventually, Kratos comes to a gap that is too wide to cross, with a soldier holding a lever that seems to be holding back a bridge from extending. Now Kratos must find a way to solve this issue. Kratos backtracks through the area, fighting new enemies that are now present in areas that were empty previously. Again, I just said that. He finds a building with a movable ballista turret. Kratos takes the turret and drags further inside of the building, where he uses a movable floor to rotate the turret. I don't understand why this is a thing and he can't just turn the fucker himself. He can pull it and he can kick it with one leg, but he can't turn it. He needs to use a thing on the ground to turn the ballista. Yes. I don't know, left or right are concepts that I do not understand.
I can't kill a direction.
Yeah. So that's just a little, it's just video gamey, but whatever. I mean, fuck, Animal Crossing had this shit figured out. Anyways, and he fires in a large door to access the rest of the building. The room beyond leads to another god door, this one having Zeus, the god of gods and lightning. Zeus gifts us Zeus's Fury, the lamest ability in the entire game, granting Kratos a ranged attack in the form of lightning bolts, which he can hurl at fast speeds and from a distance. With this new power, Kratos returns to the man beyond and just kills the shit out of him with Zeus's lightning, to force him to release the lever and extend the bridge so that Kratos can pass to the next part of the level. Now able to proceed, Kratos goes into the building beyond, fighting past more shades until he reaches an elevator that takes him downwards into another section of Athens, where he finds the Oracle under attack from harpies who whisk her away. Kratos must give chase and balance beams across the other side of a ruined bridge in pursuit. Fighting through more enemies, he reaches the Temple of the Oracle, hot on the heels of the Harpies as they carry the Oracle away, resulting in a large swarm of them attacking Kratos in a forced combat arena. After, Kratos is spoken to by an old man who appears to be digging a grave. The man gives Kratos very vague dialogue, praising Kratos for his efforts, and seems to be just talking at Kratos and hardly responding to Kratos' questions with any clear answers, claiming he will be there to help Kratos when hope seems lost. Kratos continues to the Temple Beyond, where he is attacked by more Harpies, but these ones being an infinitely spawning number of them, forcing Kratos to figure out a way to plug the holes they are crawling from. Kratos finds 2 large statues in the back of the temple, and while being attacked by the Harpy swarm, maneuvers them to plug the gaps in the temple the Harpies are crawling in from. With the Harpies stopped, Kratos goes to the rafters of the temple and balance beams his way across the other side. Fighting a few more enemies, Kratos makes his way outside to find the Oracle has been left hanging on a rope by the Harpies. This is the part Edwin was talking about. And Kratos must make his way to her before she slips. At this point, we don't have a timer. This becomes relevant later, but she screams at you the entire time like you're on a timer. So using some nearby statues, Kratos makes himself a platform to use to get to the higher ledges of the courtyard, which then starts a timed platforming section where Kratos must climb, swing, and balance beam over to the Oracle before she falls. This part is timed. The timing on this is very tight, and there is a large likelihood to fail if the player hesitates or fails the platforming at any point. Like, I felt I was going fast, and I still reached her with 2 or 3 seconds to spare. Kratos rescues the Oracle, but the narrator informs us that in doing so, Kratos had set in motion the events that would lead to his downfall. The Oracle looks into Kratos' soul, giving us the first real look into Kratos' past, only hinted at by the various NPCs up to this point. Kratos was a great general in the Spartan army and used particularly violent methods of conquest, and the only one not to fear him being his family. He became consumed with a desire for conquest and glory. The Oracle is rather disgusted by this, and Kratos barks at her to keep out of his head. She then informs him that his strength as it is now is not enough to defeat Ares, no shit, and then he must find Pandora's box, which is hidden in the desert to the east, a perilous journey which no one has returned from. Kratos makes a return trip to the beginning of the level, fighting through the sewers of Athens in various combat encounters with different enemies until he reaches the door to the desert. And again, the sewers of Athens is a whole thing in of itself. It probably takes you 20 to 30 minutes to get through that area, but it's literally just a straight line with a bunch of fighting. That's it. There's not a whole lot to talk about. And then he reaches the door to the desert, and then that is a good stopping point because this is where we exit Athens in its entirety to get to the intermediary between basically Act 1 and Act 2 of the game. So, Jordan, how do you feel about the other half of Athens in pursuing the Oracle and the shades and the rooftops and whatnot?
I thought it was basically just a continuation of the before, where you just were fighting the same things. There's nothing really changed. So, as you destroy a new character, that's just one more added to the roster of enemies that you fight at one time. So, when it was just a zombie guy and then the Harpies, now you're fighting all these Gorgons and all this shit at one point, and you just start realizing that it's it's starting to be what it is they just keep adding more and more, and to the point where you're probably going to think about the end of the game it's just going to be just tons of enemies just thrown at you. So you're kind of getting a feel of it, but you're still knowing that there are just all these different things that you have to do in order to get around. Like we were talking about the ballista, or having to use the moving floor to turn it around to fucking make it go through something. It's just a lot of things that I was seeing in the game that were kind of just frustrating to me to see, because the gun, if you're seeing this man leg pressing a statue to knock it over, but this guy's having one hell of a time just trying to pick up and to open up a chest, or to move a lever, to flip a lever to raise up an elevator. I'm like, if he's having a tough time, I can only fucking imagine how much difficult it must be for regular human beings to be able to fucking pull that lever. So I don't know exactly what's going on with it, and it just, I don't know, those kind of things just bother me to see, because if I'm seeing a guy moving such things with ease, but he's having such problems with such small things, it just doesn't work with me. It just bothers me. But it was just a walking through play by play. The Oracle thing was stupid. Yeah, she's constantly annoying your ear off with just come get me, save me, and you're just like, bitch, I'm trying, give me a fucking minute, and and then when you see that scene and you're just like, oh, it's too late. I'm like, I really wish there was a way to skip this, because every time you lose, you get to hear that same fucking lady gnawing your ear off again with the same shit. Nothing changes in dialogue. It's just the same shit. And so you finally get through it, and you're just like, wow, I hope there's not more of this shit, or I'm not gonna like this game anymore, because that was really rough for me, and I was just watching the video. But that was pretty much all I had.
Yeah, I mean, and to expound on it, the first part when you're not timed with the Oracle is one of the few areas, like one of two areas I had to consult the internet, because I was doing the right thing, because you have two statues, and the puzzle, the solution is that you're supposed to put the statues on top of each other to make like a really tall platform, and put it all the way to the other side of the area to basically put a platform between two areas you can't reach. But I didn't know where to put it. I thought I was supposed to try and get to the thing in the middle of the courtyard and then do something from there, but you're supposed to put it in the very back by a different little rooftop, and I really thought I could not make that jump with my double jump to get to that rooftop to begin with. So when I could, I was just like, oh, well, that's stupid. Because I just had no idea where I was supposed to put the platform. I had the platform, I just don't know where to put it. Really fucking hate the shade enemies. We're starting again to like complex fucking enemy design that bothers me in these games. That just a bunch of crazy nonsense bullshit that I don't like, which is why I used, once I realized the Gorgon was really, really effective on them, that's basically all I used the Gorgon head for, was killing those fucking things. The timings, the platforming is still fucking, I mean, I'm going to say it, I fucking hate the platforming in this game. It's an annoyance. That's all it is. It's not fun. The platforming in this game sucks ass. I don't like it at all. The highlight of this game is the combat. That's it. And the story. The story's all right. And this is also, as I said when I was explaining, this is when we first get a taste of what Kratos' real backstory was like, which is not much other than he was a general Spartan, which, I mean, of course, he's a soldier. I'd be kind of surprised if he was a fucking farmer. Yeah. But, yeah. Anyways, so Corey, how do you feel about the other half of Athens as you're chasing the Oracle?
So, like, I thought that I would be in, like, Greek stuff a lot more. And so when, like, this section ends, it's like, I never even remembered any of the rest of the game. So I was like, oh, I'm done here. That guy holding the stupid lever took me forever to figure out that I'm supposed to just kill him. And I was like, what do I do here? I'm just talking to him, and he's like, no, I'm never going to let you cry. And it's like, and then I finally am like, oh, just laser beam that guy. It's like, you're an innocent bystander, but I have to kill you because I really need a bridge. And, you know, it's like, okay, whatever.
As I said earlier, let's be real. If you needed health, there was plenty of civilians to stab to death and get health back. Kratos is not a good person.
The thing that's kind of interesting about that, though, is it really does kind of play up to, like, Kratos' rage. And, like, it's kind of purposeful, even though I'm sure that it was just kind of, like, a gimmicky thing. But this part wasn't really that... like, the thing I hated was walking across the stupid beams. Also, the pushing of the statues to stop the infinite spawning heart. I was just like tearing their wings in half. I was just like grabbing them and killing them, grabbing them and killing them. I was like, why aren't they stopping? And I was like, oh, I have to do something. Okay. And then it's like, now that I got that, all right, I'll just plug the hole here with these very specific shield statues. And then I'll, because I'm probably like, how are you guys? Like, there should be no more family members. I think I've torn like 100 of you in half. Why have you not learned yet? I'm just killing you. But like it was fine, you know. And then you get your story element. And it's like, okay, you know, I mean, I already know about Kratos' story, so it's like I just thought it was going to unfold differently. So it is working backwards to like the moment of truth kind of thing. But it, you know, the payoff in the long run, I think, is done really well. And you know, getting to use like the Blades of Chaos and stuff from playing like 2018, like when you know, get those in the game, like that was such a cool moment for me because I'm so attached to this series, and like seeing the moveset in that game, and it's very reminiscent of like the exact same moves you do in this one. I was like, oh, so playing this again, like I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. It's very nostalgic for me. And but I just thought that this area would be a lot longer. I'm glad it ended, but with what's coming next, it's like, oh, and the game is a little bit more compact than I thought. I figured I'd be playing this for like 20 hours, but it's the music really good. It's like I'm always hype like everywhere I'm at for the most part, except for this next area that we're gonna get to. I'm sure it's probably my least favorite part of the game, just because of how long it takes. But yeah, overall, like I like the area. I like the cackly gravedigger dude, and I like what they do with that later. But the level as a whole, it was very kind of Metroidvania in a sense, because you're like kind of back and forth between new doors kind of stuff. Like it's locked from the other side, Dark Souls type thing.
Yeah. And you just have to keep finding a new ballista to fucking break down every fucking door.
It's like somebody left their keys here, and it's just a giant ballista.
that is what Kratos perceives as keys. Yeah, actually, when it comes to the music, I don't know if it's a remastered thing. It might be, or maybe it was just because I was playing the game and I was trying to figure out what I was doing. I wasn't paying much attention to the music. But since I was playing it on the original copy, on the original hardware, the music was there, obviously. It's not like it's not there, but I felt like when I was watching the remaster, I felt like the music was a lot louder, like a lot more prominent. Like I could, like when I was watching the game, I could hear the music a lot more. I was like, "Damn, this is some banger ass tracks."
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if it's more orchestrated or not, but it could have been like one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what I think could have just been when I was playing. I wasn't paying attention to the music. I was trying not to get my ass kicked, so I wasn't really listening. But yeah, I mean, I like Athens. I like Greek places. It's just like, as far as settings go in this game, it's so limited, especially as we're about to see, because now, again, congratulations, we've been through one of two places we're going to be throughout the entire game. We're in the sea a little bit, and then in the desert a little bit, then it's just Athens and fucking the Temple of Pandora, and then Hades for a little bit, and then we're back here. But yeah, Edwin, how do you feel about the rest of Athens before we get to the desert?
So, I mean, I already explained the oracle part, but it's like the lady falling off the. I was super annoyed. This it was like right before the Minotaur part. I think that's where I actually use the what is it, the God Rage that he has. Yeah. And then I started killing people. I was thinking, I was like, is there an achievement? I was like, if at all possible. There's like maybe in like the remake on the PS4 or 5. I was like, to beat both those Cyclops without killing any people. And I immediately failed that, so I assume not. So I was like, everyone just kept getting near the Cyclops. It was like, instead of running away like a smart person. So I was like, I just killed a bunch of them. So and I also laughed when that lady just fell off the side because she was pissing me off. I was like, just stop running. I was like, I have weapons and they're not in my hands. Stop running. I'm not a threat. And then she just falls off anyway.
You learn you're Kratos. They know who you are. Talk. You're like a horrible... like basically the super serial killer of Sparta is chasing after you. I'd run too.
I can't trust anything that guy says.
I mean, I was like, hey, I'm currently saving your city by accidentally killing people, but also stopping all the monsters.
She just saw you murder a bunch of people out there with the Cyclops, and you can grab the civilians with just total knowing that they're civilians, grab them and just run them through with your Blade of Chaos, being like, sorry, I need health.
Yeah. You got any health in there? Tears her in half. She's like...
yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, it's because of that Cyclops part. I was like, oh, I can kill people, and there's no consequence. But I don't know
there's
why.
Also like no people after this, anyways. Like that's like a really weird moment because there's like all the civilians because Athens under attack, and then after this, there's never civilians anywhere.
Yeah, because they're all fucking dead.
Yeah, everybody's dead.
I hope no overpopulation for you.
Yeah,
but it's because of that part when I got to the bridge with the guy just like holding the lever. I was like, I'm going to assume I need to kill you because I ran around enough that I found the Zeus's bolt before actually seeing that guy. So it's like, I guess I'm supposed to kill you. So I just kill him. And I was like, oh, it actually worked. That's what I was supposed to do.
Let it go, dude. This is only going to end one way.
This isn't Skyrim. This isn't Skyrim. This isn't Baldur's Gate. We don't have persuasion checks here. It's like, well, we have a persuasion check. It's just called lightning bolt.
Killing your problems.
That guy literally could have survived. It's like, just let me over, and then you can just put it back down. I don't care how long you spend there for.
I mean, the guy's game plan was literally that. He's like, I'm gonna hold this forever. It's like, all right, good luck with that.
You gotta get tired sometime.
Yeah. Again, my only. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was like the temple was like all those harpies kept coming through. I was like, I spent there like maybe like 20 minutes because I didn't know what I was supposed to do until I went to the back and I was like, oh, there's handles on these statues, and I grabbed the chest. I ignored the statues after that because I didn't know if you could like put them on the first floor because they're on that pedestal. So I was like, oh, I can't just bring them down. And then I realized like, oh, it's like the shield is at a perfect height to cover up the hole. I was really pissed at that part. And then going on the platforms, it was just like literally every single one of these platforms is like breaking off. How is this thing even still standing?
Video games.
Yeah.
All right, then. I'm on. Like I said, I've kind of interjected with my thoughts about everything, but my biggest deal was that stupid statue puzzle. Luckily, I had seen Corey do the shield with the harpy puzzle, so I knew what to do there. I probably would have gotten stuck there for a little while too, had I not seen.
I was live streaming the game for the first day I was playing it.
But yeah, I already shared most of my opinions on it. I think it's fine, but now we're done with Athens because now we get to go to the Desert of Lost Souls for like 5 minutes. So we go back to the beginning and go back to the door that Edwin said he reached before that you can't go into because you have to rescue the Oracle first. So Kratos reaches the Desert of Lost Souls and is greeted by another Athena statue before entering the sands proper. She reconfirms the Oracle has told Kratos what the Oracle has told Kratos and provides additional information telling him that he must follow the siren's song in order to cross the desert and reach the Titan Kronos on the other side. The Titan is forced to wander the desert with the Temple of Pandora chained to its back as dictated by Zeus. Kratos' first task is to find and destroy the Sirens, which is going to be another new enemy type, where the player must wander the desert where visibility is low due to a sandstorm, and follow the singing of the sirens in order to locate them. Doing this to open all Jesus Christ. Killing all three of them opens the way forward, basically, to Kronos. The Sirens themselves are a new enemy type, capable of shooting ranged magic at Kratos and are very fast and can evade a lot of attacks. Once the final Siren is killed, the way beyond the stifling desert is open and leads into a ruin where Kratos must navigate up a ledge onto a moving platform in order to reach a great horn, a device Kratos uses to open a path in the raging sandstorm to another horn beyond it. I don't know why we just have a horn that leads to another horn.
They're out of ballistas.
Yeah, we're out of ballistas. We have horns here. Before being able to blow this one, Kratos is attacked by a whole horde of sirens, which he is forced to fight off before being allowed to proceed. Kratos now blows the second horn, which seems to summon Kronos over to his location. Kratos manages to latch onto the gigantic creature and begins to climb all the way up to Pandora's temple. The narrator informs us this took Kratos 3 days of climbing to reach the temple. How the fuck has Ares not won already? Are you serious?
I was going to say the time skip stuff is crazy in this game.
Yeah, I thought like Ares got there today and the city's already fucked. Like, did he just piss off or whatever? It shouldn't take him more than a day.
Just sitting down on the mountains, just waiting. Yeah. It's like, I'm really tired of stomping on all these people. I gotta give me a quick 30 minutes.
I want someone to show up and stop me. This is boring.
What's weird is like it took 3 days when Kratos like started like in the middle of the entire Titan and fortress.
Like it took him 3 fucking days, and he's still technically mortal, which is why I call bullshit.
He's like set up a camp, like start a fire, eat like a sandwich or something. He's just like climbing for 3 days straight. I mean, I guess he is like a Spartan, right? So it's like his tenacity, but it's like, yeah, you're talking 72 hours here.
Well, it's 3 days. Then we learn when we get into the temple, he's not the only person to do this. And I'm just like, what the hell? But we're about to get there anyways. Also, yay, clap, clap. By the way, we're out of the desert now. That took 5 minutes. That whole new area that we're in and out of in like a blink of a fucking eye. Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to stop there. We're just going to keep going into the Pandora's Temple because it's the desert. We might have one thing to say about it, but honestly, it's just a weird roadblock.
I died there.
I don't blame you. I almost died because some of the fights with the sirens are annoying, especially the little boss fight because there's so many of them and they dodge like every fucking attack and it's really annoying. Once he reaches the top after 3 fucking days, outside the entrance of the temple, Kratos meets a zombie soldier who is busying himself burning all the corpses of those who have come before Kratos in search of Pandora's box. There are so many fucking dead bodies up here. I'm just like, how did all these people get here? Kratos is obviously shown to be some kind of demigod, basically, because he's like fucking Ares' champion. Spoilers, we'll learn that later, but like Kratos is special, but they're telling me a bunch of mortal men have not only like traversed that desert bullshit, but also jumped onto Kronos' back and came up here. Like hundreds of them. I'm like, what the fuck ever?
I was wondering that too. It's like, how the hell did you even get up here?
Exactly. Why are you here? Like, what is your drive? He's like, I'm so pissed that guy parked his horse cart next to mine. I need the power of whatever the hell this is.
That's another thing that pissed me off because when you get up to the fortress, there's just a random ass vulture on top of there. It's like, out of all the gifts the gods could give you, wings were not one of them.
Don't worry, that's the second game.
Yeah, they tried to fit it in this game in the making of, and they were like, oh, I don't know, it's not working. Maybe we'll do that again some other time. And they give you the wings of Icarus in the second one.
Yeah. So, anyways, aside from questioning how the fuck there's like hundreds of people on this fucking back of this giant after what you just went through, blah blah blah. So the guy opens the door to the temple for you. You have to fight another upgrade to the Cyclopses before you get in there. At this point, the QTEs for killing these dudes, especially the Cyclopses, are getting really fucking fast. And again, I know I'm a weird case because I don't think fast, but I'm sorry, I can't register the button and then also press it all within like 0.3 seconds. And I got kicked in the face and slapped off different Gorgons so many times in this segment because I can't process that information fast enough. I just eventually gave up entirely and just started killing things just regularly.
Same.
So, after dispatching them, Kratos enters the temple and makes his way inside to the Rings of Pandora. The main area of this part of the game. Kratos finds a hallway lined with slamming spiked walls and maneuvers his way past into the room beyond, finding a structure that fires a beam of light towards the center of the rings, but is blocked by a skull door. Returning outside, Kratos uses a crank to move the very walls of the rings in order to access a different hallway that contains another god door. This one having Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. She gifts Kratos the Blade of Artemis, a new weapon rather than a power, having much greater single target damage than the Blades of Chaos at the cost of not having a wide area of effect. Kratos proceeds past the door into an area filled with enemies to test the blade out on, also showing off the new and improved Gorgons, their QTE executions being very fast and unforgiving at this point. Fighting his way up to the arena, Kratos reaches a lever that lowers a weight and rope that allows him to descend the chamber to a rope bridge segment. Kratos fights his way across, which, by the way, he fights his way across this area where there's like hundreds of regular dudes fighting a ton of zombie soldiers for some reason. Again, I don't know why all these people are fucking here. He fights his way to an item called the Shield of Hades. Kratos then must fight his way back out against a large horde of zombie soldiers. I only found this fight notable because they spawn a shit ton of them in this like really small little hallway area, and you're actually timed because like the wall behind you starts closing in on you and you have to kill them within a time limit, but they just spawn so much that swinging the Blades of Chaos around and using like Poseidon's Fury is so much fun. You build up that combo meter and you're just like, yes, good juices in my brain. So Kratos makes his way back to the top chamber and enters a different hallway that leads to a room where Kratos must kick a crate onto a button with precise timing to slip past a revolving door to the area beyond it. This is not much of a puzzle, but god damn it, I really had to fucking figure out later that you had to like evade backflip once you kick the fucking thing, because god damn it, that timing is tight. Kratos maneuvers past Kratos jumps back down and uses both. Wait, hold on. Okay. This leads up to the balance beam rafters where he finds the shield of Zeus across the gap. Kratos jumps back down and uses both to open a puzzle door and travels beyond to a new room just filled with a bunch of pacing saw blades. Kratos maneuvers past the trap to a hallway beyond and finds himself assailed by enemies and moving walkways and smashing walls. Evading these traps, Kratos enters into an outdoor area where a large amount of climbing is needed. This area is horribly boring because climbing just slows the game down into a crawl and just boring as shit. Making his way over the rock climbing, Kratos finds a chamber with loose flooring. One needs to be sure to be careful with heavy attack here, as the floor can break and kill Kratos, as I had found out myself. After killing the enemies in the chamber, Kratos receives the handle of Atlas, and he backtracks by taking a chain shortcut, climbing down to avoid the rock wall. Kratos makes his way back to the saw blade room and acts fast to pull two levers in order to access a room beyond. Dispatching the enemies, he is then able to use the handle on a nearby crank in order to manipulate a statue of Atlas. The statue then uses the gigantic boulder it carries to smash a large stone door on the other side of the room. Beyond the door lies a grave with one of the head architects, the head architect being the guy who built the Temple of Pandora, one of his son's bodies inside. Kratos claims the skull of the corpse claims the skull of the corpse because it's used as a key with the skull door that he saw earlier. The tomb then slides back to reveal a ladder leading downward. Kratos follows it and finds a chamber strewn with bodies. Kratos knows that this is the work of Ares, I guess implying that Ares sent a bunch of people here, which is half the reason why all these guys are here, but whatever. The narrator giving us more of Kratos' past in a flashback, showing the battles against the barbarians that Kratos had lost until he had called out to Ares for aid, offering his soul as payment. This is all we get for now, not knowing how Ares reacted to such a plea. Beyond the room is a shortcut back to the rings. With the skull in hand, Kratos is able to open the skull door to one of the inner rings. This one has a large rolling cylinder that threatens to flatten Kratos, but Kratos manages to climb on top of it and ride the cylinder over to a hanging ladder, giving him access to the area above the rings. Kratos reaches an area known as the Challenge of... Well, actually, we're going to get to the Challenge of Poseidon. That sounds like a good stopping point. So, we've gone from Athens to the Spit of Desert part, climbed up Kronos for 3 days, entered in, got to the rings, and then basically, I know it's hard to describe, but the level design of this game gets kind of, like, confusing at this point. Not confusing to navigate, but confusing to describe.
Yeah, because you spend, like, a third of the game inside this temple.
Yeah. So basically, think of it like this. You go from hallways to rooms, collecting all those items I just mentioned to open doors and stuff. So basically, how does everyone feel about... if you have any thoughts about whatever happened in the fucking desert, on top of the first part of the first of many parts of the fucking Pandora's Temple, where we're going to be spending basically the rest of the game in, up until you get to the Challenge of Poseidon. How do you feel about it, Jordan?
This is annoying. I just was like seeing it how everything was before. Like you were traversing areas, and it was kind of nice because all open areas, wasn't really much to do. So you're just basically spending time just battling things in a nice, easy way. As now that the enemies are now getting more complicated because now they got armor. They have fucking archers shooting at you from a long distance area where you can't really hit them until you literally are done dealing with these enemies first. Then you can deal with them later. So you're just having things that are constantly just being annoying to you, and it's kind of like taking away the fun that you were once having before when you started doing, because now you have all these different obstacles that are in your way on top of dealing with these enemies that are just fucking annoying. Like the zombie dudes with the golden armor, they take a while to kill, and then you're like either trying to walk across a beam while you're trying to deal with this shit, or you're trying to get Medusa's gaze on you, trying not to be turned to stone while you're getting hit by a fucking ogre or just like a minotaur or something like that. And then you have these spike levels where the doors are trying to like hit you. And then you have these annoying spots where like there was one entry spot that you went into in order to turn this room around to get to your next spot. It looked like it took like probably like a solid, like almost a minute and a half to fucking rotate that thing all the way around. And then you're getting to that point, and then immediately you're dealing with just, again, more annoying enemies. It's not fun anymore. So you're just, I don't know. To me, when I was seeing it, it just did not look like the person was having a good time, because they were literally like, fuck, I'm trying to deal with this and I'm getting shot at, and it's just pissing you off. So it just looked like the frustration of the game was starting to begin, and it did not look like it was going to get any better.
Yeah, I don't really care. Like, I was having fun with the game, and then unfortunately, Pandora's Temple takes about a third of the game, if not more. It's almost 2/3 of the game you're in this fucking area. Not only is the setting kind of boring, you still have what is vaguely Greek architecture, but other than that, it's like really generic, just a bunch of like caves and just random outdoor areas. There's not a lot to note about. You have like a couple neat areas, but they're few and far in between. The enemies are getting really tanky at this point. They're getting much harder to kill. The QTEs are getting much harder to pull off, making combat slower and more annoying. You are being slowed down by not really, I guess, puzzles is hard to say. These things aren't hard to figure out, but they're just like little things that kind of just slow down the pace of the game that you have to stop and do before you can continue forward. I don't really care much about the desert part. I did find the sirens were a real pain in the ass to kill, and I almost died there. I might have actually, now I think about it, but I don't remember exactly, because I think I've only died in combat like twice this entire game. Every other death was due to just falling into a pit. But yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you. This is where the game starts to like slow down more or less. The story that they're feeding you is still pretty decent, but as far as the gameplay goes, their best aspect is the combat, and it's getting to the point where, difficulty isn't inherently a bad thing, obviously. I mean, for me personally, I find these games to be a little bit, I was just playing on a normal. But I don't know, it's easier for your like flow to get interrupted when shit is much harder and doesn't flinch from all your attacks and stuff, so it can get aggravating. Corey, how do you feel about the desert leading into the first third, I guess, of Pandora's Temple?
The siren enemies are probably like my least favorite enemies in the whole game, just because of like their speed and just they're kind of annoying. And there's parts of the game where it requires you to do like combat on a timer, and fighting with them, they're just kind of annoying. Especially like I didn't use the Gorgon stare or whatever. I just would use like whatever the Poseidon's Fury and stuff. But the desert itself, it's just empty. And again, I've said this before, but I'm not a fan of desert levels. So it's just like there's nothing there, and you're walking around looking for this thing that's not standing still. It's not like you're finding the soundbite like in the Lost Woods and it has like a dedicated location. Like they're moving around, so that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. But once you've killed them in this part of the game, it feels very gamepaddy. It's like that's done. Now you can go to the thing that we're trying to do. The visuals of like opening up the desert with that tunnel thing is like really cool. Obviously, it's like parting the Red Sea type thing. But the Kratos walking around, seeing how big he is. He's got this temple on his back. You get up there, and this is where like they really start to show their like inspiration from like Zelda. Because like at first it's mostly combat, and then like because there's no real puzzles in Athens at least not that I've seen. It's just more of a do A to get to B. But here it's way more like thought provoking, I guess, of like figuring out a giant puzzle box for literally a third of the game. It's the entire temple is this way. It's kind of cool, but I thought that it was just kind of unfortunate when I think I needed to use a walkthrough one time just because of the floor thing. I was trying to see if the floor was on a timer or if I actually set it off when you're fighting all of the people, because it's like, oh, you open the floor and you die. Because I died on that part like 3 or 4 times, and it's like, okay, what is triggering this? Because whatever. And that's when I saw like, and then after the temple, the game's almost done. You're like, oh, okay. I guess I'm going to be here a while. But the temple itself isn't terrible. I mean, it has like there's a lot of stuff in it, but you're just kind of like in these tight corridors for a good portion of the game now. And between combat trials and not technically difficult puzzles, it's I thought that this would be different. Again, I'm remembering the game from when I was younger to like, oh, this is not a long game. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said at the beginning, but this game is very simple and not necessarily a bad thing, I suppose. It's just like it doesn't leave a lot of like to talk about, because it's just like, and then Kratos killed a bunch of guys, and then Kratos killed a bunch of guys, and then Kratos kicked a box. It's like there's nothing super crazy. There's a little bit more to talk about once you get to the Hades segment, and then like afterwards, the challenge. Well. That's a double point. I actually meant the challenge of Hades in the fucking temple, but then there's also Hades itself afterwards because they wanted Hades and the place Hades to be named the same thing because fucking Greek people are fucking stupid sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I started getting down on the game at this point. I still like Kratos. I still wanted to see the game through to the end, but it was also at the same time I was like, man, I really am going to get through this all in one day, aren't I? Because I'm already here, and this is basically just like the rest of the game.
And based on like most of the God of War games in general, like I know, like I was like, I'm playing this on normal. I know that the length of the game is driven from the health wall that the enemies have as you progress. Because there is God mode after you beat the game. And like I've played, I think Ascension had to have a patch on an elevator part because the enemies are they just have so much health, and so like that's just something that you encounter in the God of War games. It's like you're fighting this one dude for way longer than you think you should be fighting him.
Yeah, it's very aggravating. It's like they just throw enemies at you. Like I said, when I say between everything I'm talking about, just include and also he killed a bunch of things along the way. That's literally what the game is. Like everywhere you go, enemy. There's always enemies. You're always fighting, which isn't a bad thing because
you're constantly engaged with the game. So
it's like it's not a bad thing because it's combat, but it's everything surrounding the combat is becoming a little aggravating and like slow at this point. That's around the combat, and like I said, and even with the combat itself, the enemies at this point have gotten so many upgrades that they are really tanky at this point and hurt really bad.
I found myself in areas that like do not require you to kill everything because like sometimes you get that blood wall or whatever that pops up, and then it's like you have to fight all this stuff. If there's areas where I don't have to fight everything, I would just run by them. I was like, I'm not going to deal with you right now because I don't have to. But, and that would make it a little bit faster because it's like sometimes I don't want to fight like 4 dudes in a hallway for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it's a skill issue thing. Like literally, you're going to be fighting these guys for 15 minutes. You could be dodging and everything. It's just they have so much health, So it's like, damn, can I keep it pushing here?
Yeah, exactly. It's a thing. Anyways,
it's creative though.
Oh. I
was gonna say there's a lot of creative things with the boulder push guy, and like it's interesting at least. It's less of
It still has its moments, but it's just like everything between the bigger moments is so boring. It's just like I don't care what's happening. I guess I'm killing stuff, but I'm also feel like I'm like the game is being padded by just throwing enemies at me to slow me down at this point. But yeah, it's again how I really like action games. I prefer more than just killing stuff, and that's like 90% of the game is just killing stuff. But I mean, I won't hold it against the game. Just leaves me wanting more.
It's a preference thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Edwin, how do you feel about the desert and the first third of Pandora's Temple?
Well, it's like by this point, it's pretty much you realize like, oh, you're not the God of War yet. You're just fucking, you're just a demigod of murder and pushing things, and that's pretty much what you're going to be doing for the rest of the game. But for the desert part, I got a little bit. Not a little bit. I got very lost because apparently the other sirens don't show up until you kill the first one, and that one specific spot. But I had a lot of trouble with the siren because it dodged almost every single one of my attacks. And then when I'm fighting the second one, the two Minotaurs show up, and then I get absolutely wrecked by not really the Minotaur, by the siren itself. And then I had to start over from the first siren. I had to kill her again, and then I got really annoyed. I was like, there has to be a better way to deal with this. And then I realized, like, I was like, she dodges all my blades, but how fast is she to dodge the Zeus's bolt? And I just spammed that the entire time, and I just completely ignored the Minotaurs. So, like, I don't have to kill you, I have to kill that. And then that's pretty much what I did for the last two sirens. It was like, oh, well, that was easy. And then when you get to the boss fight, we had to kill like 12 of them. I was like, yeah, the bolt's not really going to help this part. So that lasted a lot longer than it really needed to be. And then just getting to, I mean, I really like the scale and just the area of seeing Kratos, the Titan, with the fortress on his back. It was just interesting to see, like, more than just seeing Ares just stomp around like a child. It was just cooler to see. It's just like looking at Kratos, like, with the fortress on his back. It's just like, oh well, this is like the part of the cruelty of like the Greek gods, and like the least likable part of their order. But that was just more lore speak for me. That was my interest. But finally getting up to the top, it's like I started to get really annoyed because it's like every room that I enter is just more enemies. It's just like I'm never left alone. I was like, I can't progress with all these rooms being blocked off until I'm done fighting for like 5 minutes at a time. And then it takes even longer when I'm being stun locked by heavy attacks or just a bunch of enemies, because magic is not exactly the most plentiful thing, even though it's the most helpful for the amount of enemies that show up. So every fight just starts being an entire chore for me, and I'm just as angry as Kratos when I'm fighting. It's just super annoying. So
I agree with you, because I felt like most combat encounters, especially at this point, was literally just another one. And it's like every time you feel like you're over, another fucking thing spawns, and you're just like, God damn it, I've already killed like 100 of you. Stop.
Yeah, just like super aggressive as well, and you can't really tell. So like, am I supposed to kill these things to get past? Because it's like the rooms sometimes are like too large or like too wide that you can't see the two ends of the door, so you don't really know if it's blocked by that red light. So it's just like you might as well just deal with it and at least get some upgrade points, because it's like if you don't, I guess you're gonna regret it later. That's usually what happens with like games like this. Is like, oh, you ignore too many fights, so now you're gonna suffer for it later. So it's just like I guess I'll just like I'll stop being stubborn and just kill everything that I see.
Yeah, the game becomes, like I said, the game is simple. It's good for some people, not for others. I'm getting down on it, but I felt like I interjected enough of my thoughts on things, so I guess we'll just keep going. Alright, so Kratos reaches the area known as the Challenge of Poseidon, and in the very first arena is introduced to another new enemy. Again, I don't know if this is supposed to be something else. I just call it the Cerberus because it's a tiny dog, it turns into a big dog with 3 heads. What the fuck else am I supposed to call it?
My second least favorite fucking enemy in the
game. This enemy starts as a small dog, but if not killed quickly, it will transform into a large beast that is much harder to kill. They appear in large hordes, and Kratos needs to act fast to slay them before they overwhelm him in any given combat encounter. Beyond this intro to the Cerberus lies a large outdoor section filled with more enemies Kratos needs to slay to proceed forward. After making his way past, Kratos then finds an elevator-like contraption that rotates the room slowly, unlocking gates and chests before finally opening out onto another outdoor area filled with enemies. Another tier of the zombie soldiers is introduced. You know the drill, it has more health and damage. Kratos slays them all, and then makes his way to a torture chamber of sorts, having many cages with prisoners in them. Kratos must take one of these cages with a still alive victim in it and kick its way up an incline into an incineration chamber, all while being assailed by zombie soldiers and the cage being always sliding back down the slope unless stopped on a pile of rubble. Kratos must burn the prisoner alive, and this opens the way forward. Now, this is what I referred to this earlier, but I could have sworn that when I played the original game in the original graphics, that the guy in the cage was just a guy. Like, it was a normal soldier dude. And he's screaming and yelling for Kratos not to, burn him alive the entire time. And he's like, we all must sacrifice to the gods. And he just Kratos burns the man alive. Probably the most brutal thing he does in the entire game. But when I watched the remastered graphics, this guy was turned into a zombie soldier. Like, he still talked, but he wasn't just like a normal human anymore. It was a zombie soldier. So, as we're going, if any of you are interested, could you, check that in the background? Because, maybe I'm crazy, but I could have sworn the original it was just a guy, and then the remastered graphics, they turned him into a zombie, I'm assuming to make it seem like Kratos is being less of a monster. Because it's just like, oh, it's a zombie, who cares?
It's just weird. It's just a regular, because I saw it as just a regular zombie looking enemy, but it's it still talked. But I don't know. That part didn't make any sense. Well, the other weirder part is just the smile Kratos gave him. It's just
Kratos is fucking evil in that section. And maybe I'm being crazy. Maybe it was a zombie person in the original graphics, and I'm just being insane. I just could have sworn it was a regular guy.
Oh, I'm watching the video right now. It looks like a regular guy. It looks like a regular dude.
It's saying that it was also censored because the PAL version of the game was censored. So I think the remaster has the PAL version.
Yeah, he looks like
the other one.
Yeah, he looks like a normal guy. He doesn't got any cuts or anything. He doesn't look like a bone or anything. He looks like a regular person just being pushed, and he's telling you to please don't do this.
That's the part that was.
Please, I got work on Monday.
This is weird that they were censored that when you purposely kill a guy just trying to keep himself safe and you kill him with a lightning bolt.
That's what I found weird.
It's I've seen plenty of titties by this point, and this is the thing you guys are I don't know.
Well, lots of titties. You fucking zap a person across the bridge, and you just straight up murder civilians for health. But this is where you draw the line. I understand this is particularly brutal, but damn, I don't understand why this and nothing else sort of thing. Maybe because it was easy to change, I suppose, because they probably just swapped the model is all they did. But Edwin ran into the void. I'm sure he'll be back.
No, yeah,
no. It's okay. He'll be back. There he is. Anyways, so yeah, that's a bit of trivia that I just found randomly when I was making the outline. I just found it weird that they decided to censor that of all things. Yeah. But anyways, after you burn the guy alive, the next chamber is filled with water, and here Kratos gains the ability to swim and breathe underwater with Poseidon's trident. Diving into the water, the player is given a quick tutorial on how water navigation works, and then swims to the next area of enemies that houses a lever, which activates a contraption in the previous chamber to help progress forward. Kratos climbs his way out of the chamber and into another underwater segment where he will reach an area he must swim past incredibly quickly, as the walls are lined with saw blades that close in on him. You have to do this on the way back. Yeah, it was stupid. You have to do this on the way back out of the chamber as well, because you have to backtrack through it. The arena beyond is, of course, filled with enemies that he must dispatch before being allowed to interact with a lever in the center of the chamber. The lever opens a wall back in the underwater segment to allow Kratos to continue forward. Swimming past the now open door, Kratos moves forward until he reaches an underwater hallway, a place with moving walls that threaten to squish Kratos unless he periodically takes cover from them. I fucking hate this area. I died here so many goddamn times, so the fucking swimming in this game is fucking retarded. Swimming, it's fucking stupid. I hate it. Swimming his way past, Kratos is on another water area with a lever that raises a few platforms. The platforms themselves just leading to more resources, the way out being underwater inside on the way out being inside one of the platforms underwater that leads back to the main room where you came from. Back in the ring room, Kratos can now traverse the water that was previously blocking him and allowing to access the next part of the temple. This area leading to the challenge of Hades, Kratos is confronted by a large locked door immediately upon entering this new area and must find a way to unlock/destroy it. This first trial being a challenge against centaurs, another new enemy, fast but not very tough. They don't have a whole lot of health. Kratos must kill them in specific spots around the chamber in order to complete the trial, which will open the way forward. Kratos then enters a large labyrinth, a very confusing area meant to give the player get the player to wander around, the main goal being to find and kill all the enemies in the maze to unlock a door at the end of it in order to proceed forward. After all the enemies have been killed, the way forward is unlocked, leading to the second floor of the first chamber with the centaurs on top of a statue of Hades located in the center. With levers to manipulate the statue on top and below the surface of the water, using a beam of light from the statue, Kratos lights a dark hallway connected to the room. A long hallway filled with giant flaming rolling boulders, and he must make his way up the incline while avoiding them all the while. At the top, Kratos learns that one of the many side doors on the incline is the right one, all the others being fake, and so he must brave the flaming boulders again to find the right door. When he does so, Kratos makes his way past a series of hallways filled with enemies and a rope hanging segment until he reaches a huge balance beam segment. This fucking area sucks. So it's a huge balance beam segment, complete with rotating blades that can knock Kratos off into fucking oblivion. So not only do you have to balance on these stupid-ass beams, you have to jump on the stupid beams to not get knocked into fucking... It sounds easy, it's fucking not. I died so fucking much here. Complete with the rotating blades, blah, 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 blah. And keep his balance at the same time. Kratos navigates the two whole floors of this. When you're done with the first section, you have another section of it to go through. Making his way higher and higher in the chamber until he reaches another hallway that leads to a device that unlocks the chains of the large door that he found at the beginning of the challenge. Something is bashing on the other side now, and upon approaching the door, it bursts open to reveal, I don't know what the official name of it is, I just call it the Mecha Minotaur, because it's just this giant Minotaur creature with a ton of armor on.
Call it Mechatar.
Mechatar, there we go. Mechatar looks fucking sick as hell, by the way. I love its design. I hate the fight. And congratulations, we're 3/4 of the way through the game and you reach the second boss fight. Kratos must attack and break the boss's armor, represented as armor around its health bar in the UI, to actually be able to do damage to the creature. Kratos will attack the boss until he is prompted into a QTE segment, the timing of which is incredibly fast, and it's random inputs every fucking time, and I failed it more than a handful of times.
Yeah.
To stun it and use a nearby, guess what, a fucking ballista to break the armor off and do this several times until the armor is completely broken and Kratos can do damage to the health bar directly. But the boss still isn't dead at this point, and any death here means restarting the fight from the fucking beginning. And it takes forever to knock that fucking armor off. This boss fight sucks ass. With the final ballista shot, Kratos pins the monster against the wall and opening a hole in the door, allowing it to progress. Kratos makes his way up a long staircase to another tomb, housing another son of the architect and thus a skull for another door. He returns to the boss chamber where the way back has been turned into a god door, this housing Hades, the god of the underworld. He gives Kratos the last power he will receive in the game, the Army of Hades. A very powerful but costly spell that decimates hordes of enemies with ghosts that fight for you. Hades lets you pass, and Kratos makes his way back to the ring chamber where he uses the skull to unlock a door, draining the water in the center chamber. The innermost chamber having a winch to operate the inner walls, and now Kratos must align all the rings so that the light from the contraption on the outer wall reaches all the way to the center. Kratos once again activates the light, but this time pierces to the center of the rings, causing a large statue to rise from the middle that pierces to the very top of the temple in the center. Kratos uses an elevator to rise to the top of the statue, but the temple is still far from over. We'll stop there because that's like the 2/3 of the temple. So we're just covering basically the challenge of Poseidon and the challenge of Hades, because for whatever reason it's just 2 god challenges we have to go through before we're basically to the finale of the entire area. Jordan, how do you feel about the challenge of Poseidon and the challenge of Hades?
The levels design and stuff was kind of looking more interesting as we were going through. I could see like they were putting a lot of time into those like walls and stuff that you were going through, and how they were trying to make it seem more like disturbing, I guess, with the amount of blood and such that was going on. But they were, as they were introducing the new characters, they were obviously getting more and more difficult. Like the Cerberus part, which was annoying. Not only is it that they're little, and if you don't take care of them, they get bigger, and then they start shooting fire at you, and they take a while to kill. Then you got the centaurs that can shoot bow and arrows at you, and they're just being annoying. And then you've got yourself the higher form of Minotaur before you fight the Mechatar. So it starts becoming a lot of issues along the way, and then on top of it, you've got that stupid balancing act, and then you've got the stupid swimming. Like the angles that they were having you swim around it was confusing. Like you're trying to swim at the camera, or you're swimming in a distance in a location where you can't really see what's going on, so you're not really sure where you're traversing. You're possibly going to get yourself killed because you're running out of time with the water. So it's just like it's a balance of both, where you're just trying to get through these levels at the same time, not trying to get too frustrated, because it just seems to be a lot of issues along the way with this one, just out of things that they probably could have avoided, but they just seem to have to add it in the game to prolong it. And because obviously, like I said, we're close to the end here, and yet they're trying to stop you with all this stupid shit that could have been a better way of organizing the game to make it longer. Instead, they just did it this way. Kind of like a rush to the finish line, where we're just like, we don't have much ideas here, let's just make it annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I have huge problems with the fucking swimming, especially that segment with the moving walls that pushes you and squishes you.
I stopped recording and was like, I think I died like 30 times.
It's so annoying because of how because Kratos does swim normally, but he swims faster when you hold X, and he either, I guess,
bursts or something.
Yeah, he like kicks off nothing in the water, or just like masses the biggest fart in the world to propel him forward. Like, because it's a really annoying way to move. It's like stop, charge, shoot forward, like you're like a squid, and it just hitboxes and stuff. I got killed by those walls so many fucking times. It just aggravated the hell out of me. Swimming is really annoying in this game. I don't know why it's in here. It's like swimming in most other games, unless the game's built around it. It's just annoying. The Cerberus dogs are really annoying to fight because they are small. Even as small, they still take quite a few hits to kill. And everything is still being upgraded this entire time. It's just aggravating. Yeah, I mean, I'm still having fun with if I just turn my brain off and I just focus on fighting things, I'm still having fun, but just everything else around it. I will say, though, I do agree with Jordan that not so much the Poseidon area, but I do like how the Hades area definitely had its own identity and like looking hellish and gross and fucking bloody and violent and stuff. That area at least is pretty unique compared to the rest of the temple. But anyways, Corey, how'd you feel about Poseidon and Hades challenges?
Outside of the like stupid walking thing on the balance beams,
fuck, that's so much. Fuck, that's so much.
It's weird too because like the introduction of the centaurs, I don't think that you fight them often in the game in general. I think
this is the only area
there is like a leveled up version of them later, but I think you fight them in the Hades section. But like I don't think that enemy is used that many times. That being said, I do like the visuals of the Poseidon thing, but that swimming part with the moving platform, I died so much. I was like, I'm just going to turn off the recording and get through this part because I don't want, like, I'm sure I'm going to sit here for the next 30, 40 minutes getting killed by dumb shit because of colliders. And that's foreshadowing for a later part of the colliders. But, that being said, I like the theme of this whole temple. Like, as it's starting to evolve, where you're like, oh, this place was made by some crazy dude. We're finding his kids, we're taking their skulls, and everything is very purposeful, and I didn't really have a hard time getting through this. Like, I do remember playing this, I remember when Jordan was playing the roundy part when we were kids, and I was helping him get through it because we were solving this puzzle a long time ago. So in my head, I playing through this and like, where is this part at? And then when I walked into the circle, I was like, yes, this is the one thing I know how to do already. because this is the one thing I remembered, and so I kind of just like got through it. That being said, though, there is kind of like some horseshit moments, of course, from enemies, just too many of them, just peeling your health back, and you don't have a chest to get it back. But it's I didn't mind the visual style of Poseidon. I just didn't really care for the swimming that much. And it makes sense because they don't really do that in any of the other games after this. So I feel like it was just like they had it because they're doing Greek gods and Poseidon is water, so they have to have some water part. But I don't think you ever do that again later in any of the other games.
Yeah, I mean, fucking stupid balance beam, man. I think I lost a third of all the lives I've lost in the game in that area. Because it's like, you're not asking me not only to balance on this thing you can't really balance on, but you're asking me to jump on it too. Are you shitting me?
Yeah, and that balance beam part is the last time you do that, I think, and it's like, this is the moment, this is the hard one with the spinning saw blades and crap. And I don't think you do it again after this, but yeah, I did not like that part because I fell so many damn times just from like walking, and then like if I accidentally press the wrong button to pull myself up, he just lets go. It's like, yes, that's what I want to do. I wanted to fall to my death. Yeah, but like I enjoy the second half of this temple way more than the first half.
I guess I can agree with that statement, but not by much. I mean, it's at least unique, and there's more cooler things to look at. But it
probably introduces my favorite. Oh well, yeah, we didn't cover that. The enemy that has the scythe on his back. That guy is a fucking asshole.
Oh, I mean, those are just upgraded zombie soldiers. That's all.
Yeah, this guy, the Anubis looking one.
No. That's the one I was going to say we're going to get to, because he's my favorite enemy design, I think, in the entire game, is the dude with the fucking twin staff. But we'll get to that part after this. But yeah, liked the visuals, hate the swimming, but that seems to be unanimous.
Yeah, it's just like...
Unless Edwin loves it.
I mean, I've already said it. The combat in the game's pretty fun. If it was just about combat and nothing else, I wouldn't have much to complain about. I mean, I still would, I guess, in a way, but... Like, I don't have anything to complain about with the puzzles, but, like, traversal of this game, the jumping, the swimming, the climbing, all of it is, like, boring or wastes my time. I just don't like doing any of it. It's just really aggravating to do. Yeah. I wonder if that's why they completely ixnated in the fucking newer God of Wars, where it's just kind of like little climbing segments that's really not a whole lot of anything, just time for characters to talk.
Like, yeah, they don't ever have this stupid combat on the wall thing, because you just spend yourself like just slamming the square button, just kick until he falls off. And you're playing the stupid chicken on the monkey bars bullshit, where you're trying to like throw the guy down, and there's 17 dudes on the fucking rope, and you're just like, can you just not do this?
Exactly.
This would have been more impactful if there was no enemies on the rope and I just had to climb across and had Kratos like have an inner thought where he's like, it's like, oh, did I leave the stove on? Like, it's like I don't like anything else except for this stupid kicking thing, because that's like across the entire game. I think that's the thing I hate the most is the climbing shit.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier, but it's not used much, the rope climbing, but holy fuck, it is like the most... It's just like climbing, because it just trivializes combat. It's so pointless. It's like, mash square to win. That's all it is, and make your way across. It's like, cool, that's boring as shit.
And hope to God there's no archers.
Yeah, hope to God there's no archers. I did say that was funny, though, is that I didn't know why we needed the skulls. I didn't understand that the skull door needed a skull. I know that sounds stupid, but I didn't know. So when I got to the sarcophagus and Kratos just stands on top of the corpse and rips its head out, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Looks at camera, I need this. You're like, okay.
I guess. I won't tell you otherwise, but goddamn, like, what the fuck?
This is just foreshadowing for when I take Mimir's head.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going on my belt.
I will say that is actually kind of funny, is that they actually remake that in the Ragnarok, in the free DLC, actually, of Ragnarok. You actually recreate this area where you incinerate somebody, because obviously the developers realized this was really fucked up. And Kratos actually has to relive this portion in Ragnarok, and Mimir's head gets put into the cage, and he breaks out Mimir, which fucks up Ragnarok essentially. So when he redoes it, he steps into the cage to incinerate himself. Like, it's like a whole lesson learning thing. I just thought that was interesting that this part specifically comes back in the latest God of War in the free DLC, no less.
I mean, like it's really crazy because, and this is probably more of like a final thoughts thing, but like I think Kratos is a very well made like protagonist.
Yes,
across many games. Like I don't think I've seen. He's like up there with like some of the best characters ever created, I would say.
Bubsy.
Yeah, Bubsy. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
I'm the God of War now.
I'm the God of War now. I 100% agree with you. And while we won't get to the nitty gritty of his backstory till the end part of Pandora's Temple, but you already see that there were seeds of a redemption arc in Kratos' character in this first game that easily explains why you can see him going on that journey in 2018 in Ragnarok. I don't understand people bitching about being like, that's not God of War. He's all soft now. I'm like, he wanted to stop this since day one. Like, I
feel like you guys forget there's 5 games before this about why he needs to go on this journey.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't like doing this. You understand that, right? He regrets what he does. Like, he has done horrible things, yes, but he regrets them and wishes to move past them.
And specifically God of War 3, and maybe that'll be a game of the month at some point in the future. But like, God of War 3 is like the roughest journey because that's when he's just like, all right, everybody, you're out, reset.
Yeah, everybody dies. So, Edwin, how do you feel about Challenge of Poseidon and Challenge of Hades?
I like the aesthetic.
I thought you were going to say you like the swimming.
I like the swimming.
I actually love swimming in this game.
No, it's like fuck everything. Minus the
question you fuck. Fuck everything.
But it's just like they wanted to just put so much shit in this one area where it's just like puzzles, platforming, traps, and just a fuck ton of enemies. It was like we put so much shit in here. Any one of them is just a fuck you, depending on your skill level. So it's just like there's so many things in this one tempo. It's just like if one of these is annoying, then and the rest is just it's just so annoying. I hated this area.
It's gonna be okay.
If you just narrowed it down to just fighting, it's good. But it's just they focus on all the other things that aren't fighting. That makes it not fun. Yeah. And if I understand people, you can still. I mean, it doesn't make the game crap because the main mechanic is still fighting. So the strongest point of the game is still strong. But for anyone who likes this game that likes the traversal, I need them to explain to me why. Because it's just like this is the most like next to some of like this is as bad as like the worst of like Super Mario Sunshine when it comes to just like traversal and movement and shit like that. So I'm just like this shit isn't working. Please stop.
Comparing it to a Super Mario game, that's the but you have heard of me statement.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not a platform. I mean, going back to our fucking platforming episode, here's a game with a bunch of goddamn platforming, and it doesn't fucking need it.
Yeah,
so fucking sick of this shit.
There is, and we haven't got to the other part where I was like very confused. But there's this platforming part with moving saw blade fucking brick things, and that was another point where I paused the recording because I was like, I don't know.
No, we passed that already, I think, anyways.
No.
Are you talking about the moving platforms? The moving platform one?
Yeah, the fucking door on a timer.
Yes, okay, yes, we haven't gotten there. That was terrible. Yeah. We're almost there.
I mean, because I get that this is the first game and they were like trying to find like a footing for like a balance, but it's just like this tempo literally had almost every single like type of game in this one area, but it's like you left nothing for anything else. It's just like I was like, if like each challenge was like based on one like type of thing, Like if the beginning part was just traps, the Poseidon part was just like just puzzles, and then the Hades part was just fighting. That would make more sense. But each one had a little bit of everything, which was just infuriating. It's just like, just at least balance it out, not just put random things. This is like platforming, puzzles, enemies, puzzles, platforming. It's just like just fucking pick one.
That's the fucking worst part. There's not even titties anymore.
Yeah. Well, the game's starting to. Yeah, there is harpy titties. That's true. The balding harpies. They're showing you what they got. I just looked this up, and this is definitely like a very side note thing. But apparently, Santa Monica's first game was that Kinetica game. And if you don't know what Kinetica is, it's that racing game where people are like racing with wheels on their hands and feet.
What the fuck?
I was like, how did they go from that to this? Because thank God they did.
Because David Jaffe played Onimusha, and it's just like, let's do that.
Yeah, that's what it was. Onimusha wasn't out yet, so they were like, we don't know what a game is yet. Like, what about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like another note. It's just like after the Iron Minotaur fight, Cybertor, it's Megator. That's that fight was just annoying. I find it weird that it's just like it had his armor, but its health bar is covered, so it's just this weird thing on the side of the screen that you like don't really know what it is until the armor's broken. So it's like I don't know what that is, but it's on screen. I'm assuming it's related. But then like after that fight, it shows Hades, but it's just like I don't like the way to design Hades because it just looks weird. It's just this mouth,
his giant gaping sphincter mouth. Yeah, he's not cool.
Yeah, it's just
weird because they changed his entire visual
in the other one.
Like in the other
probably
ones.
because this one sucks.
He's just like a big dude with like a helmet on.
I'm a mouth breather, clearly.
I just suck dong all the time. That's all I
do. Insert penis here.
You're like, well, it is Greece, I guess.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's push past the rest of this fucking shit so we can get to the real hell. At the top, let's see. At the top, so yes, we've ascended the tower. We are out of the rings of Pandora. We're at the last third of the temple. So at the top, Kratos encounters the final enemy type that Corey just mentioned. I call them glaives. Again, I don't know if this is supposed to be some kind of mythical creature. The closest I could think of was a jackal, but that's Egyptian.
It's like a
I just call them glaives because that's what their weapons remind me of. So they're a very tricky enemy that can deflect attacks and move erratically and hit very hard. All right. Kratos encounters a harpy. I'll get to my final thoughts, but holy shit. Kratos encounters a harpy on the bridge past the glaives. The narrator telling us Kratos knows the creature was sent as a warning. I don't know how he knows this. The harpy's just eating somebody. Giving us another flashback into Kratos' past, revealing that Ares did accept the deal that Kratos made. There we go. Saving him from the barbarians and accepting Kratos' service as his warrior and gifting him / cursing him with the blades of chaos, binding them to Kratos and granting him amazing power. The flashback ends foreshadowing the cost of the power. All right. Kratos enters the Cliffs of Madness, a confusing area with many strong enemies and odd puzzles and platforming. Making his way up a nearby elevator into the cliffside, all the while battling enemies, fighting a small army in the cliffs. Kratos moves past and up another elevator into a cave with a lever. This cave with a lever, it opens a cage with a box that the Kratos must kick to the other side of the cave and uses it to climb up on the ledge, all the while on a timer before the spikes in the floor threaten to impale him, which inflict instant death. This is very hard because, again, the timing is very tight and moving that box is not fast at all. And then the camera that you're supposed to use to jump on top of the fucking box is at an angle where I don't have, like, fucking depth perception, and I can't land on the fucking box. So I just kept killing myself over and over and over again in this one fucking room. And again, this is the part where I looked it up because I'm like, am I doing something wrong? I feel like I'm doing something wrong. It's like, no, I looked it up like, no, this part's just fucking shittily designed. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the beginning of the game when I found out, I was like, oh, the right stick controls the dodging. This is gonna suck because that means I can't control the camera better.
Yeah. This was particularly a spot where I also stopped recording because I think this area killed me like 40 fucking times.
Like Corey, you said at the beginning that like the camera's pretty fine for most of the game. This is the part I find the most egregious, to where this is where the camera is completely fucking like the camera is what's killing me right now because I can't like control Kratos to jump on top of this fucking box. So many times I had the box in the right position, but I kept missing the jump because of how the fucking camera is positioned in the room. So, blah, blah, blah. When Kratos finally manages to climb away from the deadly floor, he reaches the necklace of Aphrodite, looting it and causing the spikes to recede and allowing him to exit the chamber. Kratos climbs down and back to a neighboring cliffside, going inside again to an area with rotating platforms, asking the player to carefully time their jumps. Again, camera does not help here. That leads Kratos to a canyon-like area filled with enemies. He must. What the fuck did I write here? All right, whatever. Filled with enemies, he traverses till he reaches the other cave in the far cliffside. After killing the enemies inside, Kratos reaches a chamber filled with oddly shaped rocks, which he must slot together Tetris style into a far wall in order to unlock the door. This process takes time and is very tedious. After all the rocks are slotted together, Kratos is rewarded with the Necklace of Hera. That, as I alluded to earlier, this is probably the most puzzliest puzzle of the entire game. And as soon as I knew what to do, but I also didn't want to waste my time doing it, so I just looked up how the fucking rocks were supposed to be placed in this wall. Kratos then must return to the cliffside to a contraption he passed that accepts both necklaces and pushes out some stone blocks that allows Kratos to platform up them and proceed with the area. Before going much further, though, we are treated to another flashback, the narrator explaining to us how Kratos became a monster in the name of Ares, but when he attacked a village that worshipped Athena, as an oracle of the village warned him not to enter the temple, but he entered the temple anyways, despite the warnings and his own feelings about not doing so. And he slaughtered all of it within, but something about his last two victims broke his resolve. Who they are is unknown, but it causes Kratos to swear vengeance on the god of war. After the cutscene, Kratos enters the area known as the Architect's Tomb, where he sees a lever. Pulling it shows that it opens one of the few locks on a door opposite a gap with moving platforms and saw blades, and it's on a timer. Jumping across, Kratos needs to activate two other switches before pulling the lever and racing the clock. So, this is stupid because how I'm trying to explain this, you get to an area, there's a lever. You're going to pull the lever to see what it does. You see on the opposite side, it opens one of three locks that opens up a door. You have to platform by jumping on moving platforms. Again, platform in this game is awful. But also between saw blades that if you hit them, you're just going to die because it's going to throw you into the bottomless abyss and you have to do it again. You have to go across, do the puzzle over there, go back across the fucking platforms, hit the lever, and then go back across again in order to open the door. It is so asinine.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this particular part.
Yeah, it's so bad. I hate it. And this is like the last big puzzle before the end of this whole section. So jumping his way to the other side of the area, he opens a gate leading to the top of the structure that has a large crane that he uses to break a crack in the floor that reveals a switch. Then using the crane again, he uses the weight of the payload on the crane in order to weigh another button down that's on the other side of the area. He then finds a statue and drags it over to the hole in the ground he made and pushes it into the hole to hold down the second button. He then jumps back across the dangerous gap to pull the lever. Then he has to race back across that same gap in order to race the timer in order to get to the now open door on the other side. Within, he sees the corpse of both the architect and his wife, claiming the final skull of his wife. He uses it to open the skull door behind the corpse. I questioned at this point whether he knew ahead of time. It's like, you know what? Keys are boring. I'll make doors that use skulls. It'll be my wife's skull and my kids' skulls.
What are you building over there? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
I wonder.
Yeah, why are you measuring my head? Don't worry about it.
Don't shut that door.
So, Kratos makes his way inside into a. I hate this area. I hate this area so much. It's just, I'm exasperated just thinking about it. So, in this big ass arena, this is the last combat arena before you finish Pandora's Temple. You have moving walkways. The whole floor moves. It all moves. We got moving walkways. We got flame traps. We got smashy walls. We got archers. We got harpies, and it's just goddamn fucking bullshit. Goddamn, I don't know how to describe this. I hate this area so much. You can't stay in one place. You can't jump on the platforms because there's fire traps. If you stay on the fucking walkways, you're gonna get smashed by the side of the walls. The harpies are diving at you the entire time. There's archers taking pot shots at you from the other side of the goddamn arena. I was fucking wanting to fucking kill myself at this point. I'm just like, this is
very
so fucking
similar
bullshit.
to Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. Because even after I killed the archers, Jordan heard me. I was in the call with him because I was determined to beat the game at this point. And I'm just like, I've killed like 600 harpies. When does it stop? When does it stop? When does it stop?
I was just happy to know somebody was suffering alongside me when I was dealing with the Mega Man X bullshit. He was having his gripes with the God.
Oh yeah, we were doing all of that together, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. As usual, Corey leaves or falls asleep every time I accomplish something.
Yeah, well, it's late as hell at the time. Well,
drink gamer subs.
please sponsor us at some point.
No, you're not supposed to advertise them until they sponsor us.
Well, I know. I'm just saying they're gross until they sponsor me.
They're anyways, so. And I swear to you that when I looked at the fucking guide, I think I've already lied. Yes, I looked at the guide a few times just to check that I wasn't doing something wrong. But the playthrough I watched, that when he got to this area, I swear to God, he did not have to kill nearly as many harpies as I did. I killed so many more harpies than that motherfucker did. I swear it.
Some might call it a genocide.
Yeah. And again, this is just where I just fucking, I heard it in my head. It was like, another one. Yeah. Another one. And I'm just like, make it stop. Make it stop. So finally, you beat all of that, and it opens up to the last area past it. So after winning it, he finally makes his way to the final chamber and claims Pandora's box for himself. Upon touching the large chest, Athena contacts Kratos, informing him he is the first mortal to get this far. No shit. And that there is still time to save Athens. I don't know how. To return
3 days.
To return the box to the city and use it to slay Ares, which I find hilarious because even though Kratos can move this gigantic chest, he still has to like drag it really slowly. I'm like, how the fuck are you going to get that back all the way to the city?
I was wondering about that so much.
Which thankfully we don't have to know the answer to because the writers found out a workaround.
Yeah, for sure.
So, as the large elevator descends, leading Kratos and the box all the way back to the entrance of the temple. However, Ares is aware of Kratos' success and intentions with the box, and just takes a giant pillar and yeets it all the way across the continent with pinpoint accuracy to impale Kratos in the fucking temple from Athens. Like, holy shit. It's like, I mean, I get he's a god, but goddamn, pardon the pun.
I totally expected Kratos to dodge that.
No, he just dies. I mean, anyone would. And also, I'm just like, you could have just done that whenever you wanted to, you know? You just waited for him.
The thing that's wild is that he's not dead like immediately. He's just like, oh no, don't.
Yeah,
go.
that 100% like tore him in half.
Yeah.
So. Kratos dies as we get a final flashback, the narrator revealing that his last two victims was his wife and daughter, a trick made by Ares to make him a better warrior because, you know, Jedi, no connections. Yeah, it's like, kill your family, it makes you cool. And this act, beginning the nightmares that plagued Kratos' dreams so many nights, is him killing his family over and over, is what plagues him. Kratos swore revenge, and the Oracle of Athena cursed Kratos with wearing the ashes of his dead family on his skin permanently, giving him the pale white coloring, which in the flashbacks we saw that Kratos did have distinctly, like, darker skin.
Yeah.
And so you kind of wondered up to this point, like, why he's so pale, and it is kind of gross. He's covered in the ashes of his dead mother or his dead wife and kid. Like,
that's the coolest shit ever. I swear, I love it. It's such a dope thing to do.
And it's fucked up. It's a very effective way to remind him of his, like, the sin follows him. It's stuck to him.
It's super cool, but it's just like just playing the joke anytime he walks into a room. It's like, oh, who died in here? It wasn't, my wife and daughter.
He's like, oh.
It's such a burden. And obviously, if you've played the 2018 and Ragnarok, you realize that has never gone away.
Yeah, it's never gone away. It's always with him. I mean, the whole reason, he's on a redemption arc in Ragnarok in 2018, all because of the events of this game. So there were still seeds of everything that happens in the new games. It's a different gameplay style, but they were very loyal to the entire plot line that they've built up to until that point. So it all makes sense. Somehow, despite the craziness that goes on in this game, they still have a story that's pretty digestible.
Yeah. And you don't see that often.
Exactly.
Not across a franchise that's this old.
Yeah, it's like they just respect their own fucking property. They respect everything they built. Fucking Ragnarok in 2018 referenced the fucking PSP games. They didn't have to, but they do. They treat everything as canon, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Kratos dies and his soul goes to Hades as the minions of Ares take the box away. Kratos refuses to die, however, and makes it his mission to crawl out of Hades and kill the god of war, as you do. You know, when you die, you just decide, nah, I'm gonna leave.
No.
Yeah. Which I did find funny because...
too angry to die.
Pretty much. And as he's which the scene of him falling into Hades is kind of crazy because he's falling with all the other people dying right now, I'm going to assume they're all dying because of Ares stomping on them. But he grabs on
members.
He grabs on to the captain or whatever of the ship in the first mission who's hanging on to like a statue and then fucking stabs through him using him as like leverage to climb up. And the guy looks up and he's just like, you again? And he just kicks him into the river Styx. I'm like, dude, you didn't have to do that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the only time in history where somebody has looked somebody dead in the face and was like, hard feelings. Instead of no hard feelings, just very hard feelings. Kick.
I mean, this
guy's a freaking asshole.
It's like it's like Kratos killed that man twice somehow.
You again? Oh shit!
Yeah,
I've made some really bad choices in my life for us to cross paths again.
Now, while that's all well and good and very funny.
As you lived.
Yeah, he died as you lived. Dead.
Under my foot. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you twice.
It's gonna end how it ended. So yeah, that's all well and good. That's all well and good and funny. And then the rest of the level happens. So this is the last technical level, because after this we are back in Athens, but we're basically just rushed to the Ares boss fight. So now we're in Hades, we're in hell, and by God, is that an apt description? Because this is the worst fucking part of the entire game, and we've had some real bullshit to deal with before this fucking point. So it's an incredibly short but frustrating level, mainly about unfair platforming and tough fights, because everything gets another upgrade here. Everything is like top-tier toughness at this point, where any mistake can lead to instant death. A very poorly designed area, especially this fucking pillar segment, which was right before the end of the fucking level, but we'll get to that.
I'm so happy to talk about this.
So I'm going to ignore all the fighting because it's just everything else in the game. It's the same fucking enemies. We don't have any new enemies. They're all just tougher and hit harder. There's two segments of this level that are like make me want to die. The first one being it's not a balance beam segment, but you still have to balance on rotating cylinders horizontally to get to different platforms and shit. Plus, nothing is connected. It's a bunch of jumping and platforming, and there's so much shit shooting at you the entire time. But the real bitch is these two giant vertical pillars with little blades sticking out of it that you have to climb all the way up. And if even one of those blades touches your big toe, Kratos just lets go and falls all the way down. And the hitboxes are jank. There's blades everywhere. And it's so aggravating. Kratos moves so fucking slow. You have to be so careful. And even when you're careful, it's not enough. Because even though the blades are only rotating at like 0.10 of a mile an hour, Kratos flinches like he just got stabbed by a minotaur. But you have to climb up both of these things, and one mistake, and you fall all the way down and take a chunk of health damage. I died here from just being cut by little tiny knives sticking out of this fucking cylinder, had to restart the whole thing. And when I was playing the game, Corey was like, I can't wait for you to get to a certain part. And Corey had already gone to bed by the time I reached this point, and I thought to myself, I'm like, this is it. This is what he's talking about, isn't it? This fucking cylinder segment. This will remain with me for the rest of my days as probably one of the shittiest parts of any video game I've ever played. It is so fucking terrible. And I have heard that this is an area where basically the creators were like, yeah, we ran out of time. What can we say? I'm like, what can you say? Give me my fucking 2 hours of my life back.
Just delete this.
Just get rid of it. It's because I'm just like, genuinely, whoever designed this, I hope you die eventually. Not really.
You're eternally punished by playing this section over and over for all of eternity.
Not really. I'm sure whoever you are, you're a lovely person, but God, you're really shit at your job. It's just terrible.
I feel like the QA department didn't even get to this point.
Exactly.
I'll wait for my turn.
It's so bad. But then after this, you have to fight a bunch of waves of the glaive enemies, making more platforms, and then you finally crawl out of hell. And I know it's short, but I know a lot of people are going to have some shit to say about this, so we're just going to keep it right here for now. So, Jordan, what do you think of Hades? Oh, I guess I covered Hades, and I covered the fucking the Architect's Tomb. So, yeah, we have a whole bunch of bullshit we can go through. So, the Architect's Tomb and Hades.
Yeah, the Architect's Tomb was getting, again, more and more annoying. Like, there was that, of course, that spot where they just threw everything in there, like from Home Depot, you know, just like had the blade saws, the fucking bolt belt that was going to pull you into something. You were just dealing with that stupid shit. I was actually happy to see those Anubis-looking characters, those jackal-looking dudes. I was like, that would be something that you'd want to see if they did do like an Egyptian-style type of character. That would be pretty cool, because I liked how he looked. He kind of looked like a mid-boss, because he was like looking all cocky when he was like sitting against the wall with his foot up on the pillar, like, which you want some of this, you know? And I was like, oh geez. Yeah. And he was kind of cool, had this fighting style, because he would like rotate the shit like a ninja, you know? So he was doing cool moves with that glaive of his. But then you were like getting through, and you were just fighting more and more enemies, and again, like, you had that one spot that was just like, why is this in here? This is not necessary. But, you know, they put it in there, and you got through that, and you're like, okay, well, that must have been the worst part of this game. It can't get any worse. And then that's when you get into Hades, and then you're literally in hell. The design of this, I think that if the graphics were definitely brought up, you know, to have the details that they would want, because it looked like, you know, the levels are all based on like human flesh, and then like the rotating cylinder spots that you're walking across looks like muscles or tendons or some shit, so it looked like it kind of looked pretty crazy. And then the back skirts of the level of when you're looking far out, it's very blurry. You probably could see that, probably be seeing a bunch of people like suffering or drowning in hell or some shit. It would look really crazy. So, I mean, I'm sure it would look like a pretty cool level. It's just like, it looks like it's kind of held back because, of course, the PS2 limitations. Or possibly time, I don't know, like they did with the cylinder thing. They ran out of time, so they made this annoying-ass rotation of fucking blades that just move so slowly, and it takes you forever to get up there, and if you fucking mess up, you fall over to the bottom and you restart all over. So it's like, it's definitely got a bit of problems with it, but like I said, if they were to work on a little bit more, they could probably made the Hades look a hell of a lot more crazier than it needed to be. But the design of everybody's just on fire was kind of like, okay, again, you could see that they were like not really trying too much. Everybody just has fire on them. They just add fire to the character, and now you're in hell. So you're just like, oh, okay, well, it is what it is. But you know, the design itself, again, it's definitely different. But you're starting to see the time of rushing coming into play with how they made everything, and especially like Kratos, when he jumps from platform to platform, you already see that that's a problem because of the shadow underneath him doesn't show too well, so you can't really tell on depth on how you're going to land on the next platform. So that ends up taking your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
God damn yes. That's holy shit.
I mean, I agree. It does seem kind of lazy. I'm also have gameplay of it pulled up just to remind myself of things. But the one thing I do like is that you constantly just see people falling in the background, falling into the river Styx. I thought that was a neat detail. That's fun. But yeah, other than that, it's just like meat, death, blood everywhere. I was like, oh, well, yep, that's Hades, that's hell. That's cool, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, so Corey, you want to jump in on it? Go off, fam.
All right. So, like, I really like this second half of like the temple and stuff, and like once you solve all of that, and you like, it was cool. Like the family, like that. There was like deep lore revolved around these people. Like he was going crazy, and like he didn't trust anybody when you read the notes and all that stuff, and it's just like, oh, this is really fun. And then, Kratos gets the box, which is a really cool design for Pandora's box. And it's funny too because I think it's God of War 3, you actually find Pandora. But the box itself, like, I love the design. I was dragging it. I was like, what the fuck's going to happen? And the Ares, he's just like, chucks a fucking pillar right to your chest. And I thought, this happens to Kratos a lot, obviously. I thought this part of the game was in the second one. But in the second one, he gets this sort of Olympus stabbed through his back, and then you have this whole time skip nonsense, whatever the hell, here in the second one. So I was like, oh, I didn't think I was going to Hades, because I remember him climbing out of Hades, because Kratos refuses to die in general. We've seen that in every single game I think he's been in. And so, he gets it, they take the box, it's like, oh shit, and then you go to Hades, and I honestly, like, I like the design of Hades, like of like hell or whatever. Like it's fleshy, and I do agree. Like with modern graphics, I think it would be really cool. Like if we saw this game with like Ragnarok's graphics, it would be fucking awesome. Like it would just be so visceral. And the other side of it too is like I've played was it Dante's Inferno? So like when you get to the Cerberus area in that game, like it kind of has like a similar aesthetic where it's like very fleshy,
gluttony.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, gluttony.
So
that one's like
the exact same thing.
Like that was so cool, and so like seeing it, I wish I could see like a modern update of like this area, because I feel like it would just be like very gory and impactful that way. However, all of the visual stuff aside, the platforming area, it's so fucking hard. Because he doesn't have the shadow underneath him that you typically have in platformers to indicate the distance of where you're at. And so there was so many jumps that I missed because I was like, I think I'm good. And there's just right into the freaking abyss. And it's like, son of a bitch. And then the spinning thing, I was like, okay, this isn't anywhere else in the game. And I get it, because why would these things exist somewhere in Greece? Like, guys like, well, you don't like my sidewalk that rotates with blades? It's so like I get to this point and I'm just like, okay, this isn't that bad. I can walk on this. I understand. I've played plenty of video games in the past. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. I got this. And then I get to the goddamn pillars where you have to climb up. And I have a Let's Play going on right now at 2 times speed that was covering that same area. And even this person who's 100% of the game fell off that goddamn thing like 20 fucking times. It's so damn hard. I've not played a game in a while. Like I finished Elden Ring. I went back. I did beat that dragon, by the way, Bale. So, whatever. I just want everyone to know that I did go back and kill all the optional bosses. So, I was climbing this tower, and it would just be, like, I don't know what it is. The colliders are not exact, but, like, Kratos is like, ooh, my fingers. And he would just fall all the way to the bottom. And I was like, oh, there's no, like, stun thing. It's just, you're literally going to make me start from the very bottom. And it's like, yep. And the first one is 3 sections. And if you jump... And so this is the part where I'm really upset at the camera. Because the camera, I can't look ahead. I don't know what's coming. So if you do the jump animation, because you're trying to speed up through the tower, you'll slam your head into blades and fall all the way to the bottom. It's also rotating, so you have to keep fucking moving. And this is a problem because the colliders are not exact. So the blades are coming around. You're constantly climbing. Kratos like, ooh, my fingernail got hit. You fall to the bottom. I probably fell off this thing like 20,000 times. I was like, I am going to pause the recording, and I'm really trying not to just murder my neighbors on this one. Because I was getting so fucking frustrated. I was like, is there a cheat code or something to pass this? Because I don't want to do this. And I think I sat here for 2 fucking hours trying to climb these goddamn spinning blade things. And it's just like, this is the only place in the game that these exist. And I understand that there's no amount of training to prepare you for something like this, because it's just not fun at all. This one section of the game is enough to be like, I just don't think I'll ever see the end. Because I wanted to just stop playing the game. Everything prior, I don't care. Swimming part, whatever. Everything was fine. But when you get all the way to this particular part, I'm just like, I'm going to stop playing this fucking game because I hate this so much. I really want a Game Shark to give me immortality so I can just climb straight through the blades. Because it's so bad. They're so close together. In like,
there's a specific
distance,
have to get
and there's an order to do it. However, you can't look ahead either. So like, you're trying to get up this thing in a very specific path that's fucking random.
And sometimes you can like fuck yourself, and you see it coming, and you're like,
no. Because I'm like, oh shit, I didn't mean to jump, and I fall to the bottom. When I got to the top of the second one, and there was a save, I was like screaming in my office, like, yes, God damn it! It's like, I'm so happy this is over, because hell is not a long level, but like, to put it in perspective, I guess, to put it into perspective, I spent 3 hours in hell. 2 of them were climbing those stupid pillars.
Yeah, it's like if you could divide it, it's like takes 30 minutes, 25 of them is getting up the fucking pillars.
Yeah, it's just not a fun mechanic. I don't give a fuck about anything else in the game. It's just that mechanic is just terrible. It's so bad. That being said, it doesn't ruin the entire game. It just very much makes me lose my fucking mind, because it's an old video game thing too, that it's just like, oh yeah, they do this stuff in older games, and I just can't believe like QA was like, yeah, ship it, because I would be like, you're fucking fired, dude. That's not fun at all. How did you let this go through?
They just had a really good person that's really good at video games did it in one shot. He's just like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, this is super easy. I don't care. I know exactly how to do it. You just got to get there at the exact moment and do the exact thing and perfectly nail it. Fuck you, man. Yeah, the guy's like, what are you talking about? This is so easy. You just right here. I hate all of you. I hate everything.
That's why I said I again, Jordan was there hearing me curse a storm up and down, up and down, up and down, because got through the entire area and was stuck there the entire fucking time.
Yeah, I mean, I know, because I beat it before all of you, and I was just like, I'm waiting to see what you say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You were like, I can't wait till you get to this part, and as soon as I got there, as soon as I went up the pillar and got hit once and fell all the way back down, I was like, this is it. This is what he was talking about, wasn't? Yep.
Yeah, there's no other. I don't think I've had a single problem. Like I've obviously had like some struggles with a little bit of areas, but I haven't had a single problem with the game design overall until that fucking moment. It's like, this is the worst, and it's at the end. So it's like, I mean, if they put it in the beginning, it'd probably be even worse, because you're like, is this what I have to do for the rest of the fucking game? Am I going to do this again? Because this is a nightmare. But, you get to the end of the game, and then this is the one trial where it's like, let's climb the pillar. And somebody probably will, hopefully listen to this and be like, oh, that part was super easy. I did my first try. It's like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I'm real happy for you. I really am.
Yeah, because I did not. I fell to the bottom of that thing, and I just got up and unplugged the capture card. I was like, I am so fucking pissed right now that I have to do this. But I'm not going to call it, because I think I've enjoyed everything so far, and I'm right there. And these 2 pillars before that really cool fight with the Anubis guy. Also, yes, I don't know if it'll make it into the video because of the length, of course. But so after you get through the stupid hell pillars, there's this thing where you fight a wave of enemies, and then you see in the background it's building up some platforming and blah blah blah.
You know what, Corey? Why not? Like, fucking why not? When you're editing it, just cut to the fucking pillars. We're talking about this.
When you're jumping across the archers, you can't see them because you can't control the camera, and they shot me at like 1 billion miles an hour. And I think I showed you guys that too, where it was just like, watch Kratos just get flung into oblivion at like 1,000 miles an hour. Because it's like, oh shit, I can't even jump over this. I didn't even see them. It's just like boom, and you're gone. It's like, okay, I think that's like a physics thing that's broken, but like once you get through that, then it's done. And I know that you'll bring this up, but I think that the end of this area is a very nice bookend from a previous thing.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, and I think that's like just so well done. It's just so like, it's nice to know that they've maintained that entire like design process throughout all of them. Because I don't think there's a single, and we'll get around to our
final thoughts.
Scoring, final thoughts. But I don't think there's a single bad God of War game. Even though Ascension is not well received, it was still very fun to play. Like, I was very hyped for it anyways. It is weird, but that's just because there's not a lot of room for it to grow because of where it takes place. But I love this franchise a lot.
Even though you went like a 25-minute rampage on.
Well, no, I don't. Yeah, I love the entire franchise except for those two fucking pillars.
Yeah, it really is a fucking 2 pillar. I'd rather leave all the gods alive and go back and kill those 2 pillars more than anything else.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about Zeus. These 2 spinning, rotating blade things, I would just send them to the fucking black hole. I don't give a shit.
Like, I was sitting there swearing up and down. I was like, this is it. This is what Corey was waiting for. And I look, and I'm like, I am so close to the end of the game, but I was so fucking close to putting the game down. I was like, I can't do someone. It's like, I died from just fall damage from a full health bar. When you fall, it doesn't even take that much damage, but I died from a full health bar.
There is a fucking reason that there is a save point before those things. It's literally, there's a save point before the first one, and then one after the second one, because they must have known that everyone is going to hate this part.
And like 90% of my deaths was just like fucking the blade.
It was there,
pricking the big toe, pricking Kratos' big toe, and he's like, "Ow!" And I'm like, "God damn it, you fucking piece of shit!"
Yeah. What do you mean, ow? You just took a pillar to the chest, and this blade's like, oh, I got your finger, and you're like, oh, and you just fall all the way to the bottom. You're like, no, you take that shit like a fucking man, and you climb this tower. I'm tired of this.
I was sitting there ranting.
So bad.
I was sitting there ranting. I'm like, what are these? What do these accomplish? Why is this here? Like, I understand it's probably like a torture device, but like, this is really inefficient. It's so slow. What is it actually doing here?
He's like, can you install these spinning, rotating pillar things in the back section? You're like, okay, I guess. What are they for? He's like, I just feel like somebody's going to climb these at some point.
Like I said, unironically, one of the worst parts in any video game I've ever played. As if it's almost like, oh, here's the culmination of everything you've learned so far. It's like, yes, it's the culmination of everything shitty about the platforming in this game all at once. I remember very vividly. Yeah, I hate it. I hate it so much. This whole area sucks, but those 2 fucking pillars are seared into my brain for the rest of eternity. It's so fucking shit.
If there's anything I learned from this game, it's don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Edwin, do you have anything to say about Hades and the Architect's Tomb?
It was okay.
Solid.
Solid. A+. And that just shows like we're technically talking about the Architect's Tomb. Oh, and there he goes.
No!
Yeah, we're technically talking about the fucking Architect's Tomb and Hades, but everything that's so shit about Hades overshadows everything that's so shit about the Architect's Tomb so much, I just completely forgot we talked about that. Like, that fucking arena's bad, but those pillars overwrote everything I had about, like, everything I remembered about that arena after I got to the pillars. Like, I couldn't stand it.
It is what it is. I mean, like, I know that room that you're talking about, like, the floor moving, the spinning, fucking crushing things, the archers. Like, I just was like, all right, this is its own boss fight, quote unquote, I suppose. And I'm just gonna fucking kill the archers until they don't spawn anymore, and then I'll just tear harpy wings until this is over. Because that's all it was. But I definitely was like, I'm going to stand somewhere where like the auto moving platform will get me stuck and won't put me into a wheel, because the enemies are going to come after me anyways. But once you kill the archers, it's not really that big of a deal. Because if they spawn like the yeah, if they spawn the jackal or like the centaurs or something, because like again, you don't really see the centaurs anymore. I don't even think you saw them in Hades. Now that I've seen this video go through, maybe one time. Yeah. But that moving room, like all the enemies that they put in there are like, the bottom of the barrel enemies, so they all die.
But there's so fucking many of them.
Yeah, there's just like 1,000 of them, and that's the same thing that I was talking about with Ascension, where it was like an elevator, like moving platform, and they had to patch it to make it easier because people were complaining online how that was damn near impossible. And I remember getting through it, and then same thing. I was like, this is the hardest fucking thing in the entire game. This one spot, and then like I get through it, and then they're like, we patched it, and made it easier. I'm like, what? I should have just fucking waited.
The one time I wish in an old game patches were a thing, patch out the fucking blade cylinders. Just
I would have much rather climbed a regular wall and slammed enemies like I have the entire time, but no, this one.
This is more fun.
Yeah, it's I hate it so damn much. It's so rough.
I like how it was like. That was like part of the entire game, but it's like when they were rushing, that's when they started making new ideas.
Yeah, it's like
making everything shittier.
It's a cylinder, you climb on it, and there's blades, and if they touch you, you fall. It's like,
what if this part of the game gave the player cancer? Yeah, like what?
You're in hell. I'll give you a real reason to die.
Yes.
Yeah, for real. Jesus.
You are in Hades. This is supposed to be internal punishment, so we're going to simulate the experience.
Yeah, I'd rather take my college math class over again than do that shit.
I would rather go fight Radon with a butter knife than fucking go back and fight my way up those pillars. I would go back and turn back to Elden Ring and I go, you know what? Perhaps I've treated you too harshly when I fucking find shit like this. I will go fight Radon 100 times over again instead of doing this shit.
Who's Radon? Have you been to hell in God of War?
Jack, you guys want to know what difficulty is? Y'all talk about From Software games. No.
Alright, so through a whole lot of bullshit, Kratos climbs his way out of Hades through the grave that the old man in the beginning of the game had been digging, meaning Kratos is now back in Athens. Kratos is still confused by the old man, who again gives vague answers, alluding to him being a god, claiming that other gods besides Athena are watching over him. I don't know if they go back to this in other God of Wars, but I'm just throwing it out there. This is probably Zeus, since he does a lot of shape-shifting in mythology and does shit like this all the time. I don't know. Or some other god. You don't actually find out, so I'm assuming they might bring this back at some point, just as a plot point somehow in another God of War. But and Kratos now makes his way to Ares, since he is now free of Hades. Kratos fights his way through enemies, but these are all weaker versions of enemies that you fought before, so you kind of just roll over them. Kratos finally reaches Ares, who is screaming to the heavens to Zeus, revealing his motives behind his actions being pretty much he has daddy issues. Kratos obtains Pandora's box from Ares and opens it, and he turns into a giant. That's it.
Yeah, that was weird.
That like the mystical box of anything just made him a kaiju. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, it's like, is it supposed to be a box of nightmares?
It's supposed to contain the evil of existence, and
you open it up and it's filled with Cocoa Puffs.
It really depends, because if you're watching Scooby Doo, it's completely different. But yes, they do open Pandora's box in Scooby Doo. I don't know why. But,
like Zoink Scoob.
Like Zoink Scoob, the world's evil is driving us all mad.
So, this begins the final boss fight that has 3 phases in total. The first is just a straightforward fight between Kratos and Ares that you have access to all of your powers and abilities that you had throughout the entire game at this point. Really straightforward. Basically, you pop Spartan Rage and pop Army of Hades and you just win. So the first phase of the fight is incredibly easy. After this phase, you are transported into some weird spirit realm where Ares tries to torture Kratos by watching him kill his family again because he just spawns a bunch of clones of Kratos to kill his family, and you have to defend your family by killing all the clones of yourself and also hugging them to give them health back. So this is a weird, like, not escort mission.
It was very dumb.
It's dumb, but not necessarily hard. It was fine. But then we get to the third phase where they just decided, it's like, you know what'd be fun? Let's take away all the powers of the player and make this, instead of about being health bars, it's a tug-of-war match. So, in the end, you're Kratos with a sword versus Ares, and instead of health bars, you have bars, but they get filled up when you hit the opposing person. When Ares hits you, yours goes down and his goes up. And so you have to fill up your bar in a tug-of-war match by hitting him and not getting hit in return. It took a little while for me to get a hang of this, but it's not that terrible. It just seems like a why did you do this for the last phase of the boss fight sort of thing. I've never seen this like tug-of-war mechanic in any other game ever or since. So this can be blah blah blah. So after you do so, after the tug of war is won, Kratos has the upper hand. Ares pleads, saying he was only trying to make Kratos a great warrior. Kratos, the Chad he is, responds, "You did," and just fucking rams his sword through Ares' chest, which is the most badass thing imaginable. Ares lays slain and just fucking goes off like a nuke for some reason. It said Athens was saved and will rebuild while showing you pictures of the ruined city, and it's literally just the SpongeBob like, we did it, Patrick, we saved the city, and everyone's dead. But Kratos was still plagued by nightmares, and while the gods thank him for his deeds and say they haven't forgiven him, say they have forgiven him his sins, they claim they never said that they were going to take away his nightmares, which, to the gods' credit, they never did claim he was going to take away his nightmares. They just assumed they would.
The worst decision they could ever make.
Yeah, little did they know that was going to come back to bite them in the ass hard in the end.
What did you say? Did you say 2 more games of me killing all of you?
I already killed one god. What makes you think I'm going to stop now? And that was like the god of war, like the one that could stop me. I mean, to be fair, and like I said, I alluded to this. I mean, I caught onto it the first conversation he had with Athena when he's like, "If I do this, will my nightmares end?" And she's like, "Yes, we'll forgive you." And he goes on the fucking thing. I'm like, Kratos, she never said that the nightmares would go away.
Will not end. You're like, what the fuck does that mean?
So I'm just like, Kratos, to be fair, they never said they were going to take away your nightmares. Yes, they still kind of swindled you, but they never said the thing you wanted was going to happen. You just didn't read the fine print. So I'm sorry, but they kind of have like the legal upper hand in this circumstance.
My nightmares go away. Yes, we'll give you better blankets and better pillows.
Exactly. It's like...
So my nightmares will be gone. Yeah, you'll sleep way better.
I mean, that's a great analogy.
This is a yes or no answer here. I need you to say this because I'm going to kill everyone in the Pantheon if you don't.
And as such, the whole purpose of Kratos going on this quest was in vain. This leads Kratos to how we found him in the beginning cutscene of the game, attempting to kill himself as he feels the gods have abandoned him. As Kratos plummets, he is saved at the last second by Athena because, goddammit, the poor man can't even kill himself, bringing him back to the cliffside. She says the gods cannot let him perish at his own hand for the deeds he has done. With Ares dead, the throne, and when I say the deeds done, like good deeds, because he killed Ares in their eyes anyways. With Ares dead, the throne of the god of war was left open, a seat they offer Kratos to fill. Kratos takes the stairs to Olympus and sits on the throne of the god of war, claiming his place amongst the gods and becoming the god of war. And the whole thing is just leading him to being the god of war in the first game. And you have a little cutscene basically saying that every war in the future, everyone prayed to Kratos to help them kill shit, even though that somewhat gets, retroactively retconned in the rest of the games, but whatever.
Like they showed like scenes of like Afghanistan and stuff like that.
It was like modern wars. It's weird. Yeah, it was very strange. And then it leaves off with Kratos shall return as long as we sell enough games. So they left it open. They left it open clearly, but what Corey said about rounding it back to the graveyard dude. Again, I don't know if this is Zeus. That's just my guess.
I think it's Zeus. Like I felt the same way. Like because they don't officially say it, but I'm like, this has to be Zeus.
Again, I haven't read every Greek myth, but shape-shifting and dicking with people is just kind of his MO.
Dicking with and dicking down.
Dicking with and dicking down. Goose dick.
Fuck everyone in the land. I'm fucking with you.
Zeus, calm down. Keep it in your bed.
I'm the god of gods. I'll do what I want. But yeah, I didn't hate the last boss fight. The third phase kind of threw me off. I was just like, this is weird. I don't know. I really, really hate it, especially in games when, like, the final boss fight, they're like, all right, wouldn't it be cool if we just took everything away from you so we have to do something completely differently? I'm like, no, that sounds awful.
That's good.
Yeah, it's like, that sounds terrible. Why would you do that? So yeah, that's basically all we're going to talk about now, is because right after Hades, it's basically all that's left is the boss fight against Ares and basically the story conclusion on everything. So, Jordan, how do you feel about fighting Ares and the ending of God of War?
To me, I kind of thought it was half-assed, and I say it because, looking at Greek mythology, and I'm way into that shit, Pandora's box just turns you into Ultraman. You just fucking great size, and you guys have fucking Gundam battles. Like you're just battling each other like Godzilla. It was stupid to me. I was really thinking something else was going to happen. At least fucking like harm him or make him vulnerable to where he would just. I don't know. I thought something else. This felt really rushed to me, and that's what really pissed me off. The ending of it just did not work well with me. When I was like, okay, Pandora's box, all evils in this box. Okay, it makes you bigger. What? Like that's okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it. You just wear bigger shoes now. That's probably the hell of size. Is like, how am I ever going to find these size shoes anywhere in Athens? It's just not going to happen, right? So, just dealing with that bullshit. They fight, and then they got the hugging contest with your kids. I mean, it's in your wife, and it's just like I don't know. It was just not feeling good. I just was like, okay, it's longer than it needs to be, and the battle is just not. It's not epic enough. I was like, the God of War. This should be a crazy fucking fight, like just destroying places of Athens or some shit. And yes, they do, but it's not in that way like I thought it was going to be. I thought you'd be battling him or some shit. Like, okay, you're getting big, right? Now you're the huge size of the fucking Athens area. You guys are going to fight through destructive shit, destroy shit while you're fighting each other or something, And it just didn't happen. And then the last battle is, it's a tug of war shit, and then it was over. I don't know. I did not have any feelings for that last three fights. It was stupid to me. I think they could have done way better, and I felt like they rushed it.
Ouch.
I kind of agree. I already agree that, like, the Pandora's box opening, he's just like, and then I got big. It's like, that's it. That was the thing, huh? Like, you could have just pulled out like a fucking, like an RPG out of the box for all I know. Like, it would have probably gotten the same thing done. I think the only thing that I thought was cool is when it doesn't make much sense to me, but then when Ares, like, he grows like giant, like mecha spider limbs out of his back. That was really weird, but I thought that was.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
it was kind of cool looking. I actually don't really care for Ares' design. Like the flaming beard is weird. I don't know. I've seen way cooler designs for Ares in other media, especially in Fate, where he is just a giant mecha soldier essentially.
Well, I was kind of thinking that the Pandora's box was going to make him like, I don't know, powerful in the sense to where you were going to be like doing that whole, because wasn't that in the era of where you were fighting giant titans and shit, like that one game, I forgot what it's called, where you're fighting
with the Colossus.
Yeah, like Colossus. Like I thought it was going to be something like that possibly if it was not going to work out, but no, it went to the other thing, and I was like, oh god.
I mean, Shadow of Colossus was after God of War, so they wouldn't have known that yet.
I mean, I don't know how it would have been. Maybe it's just technical limitations, how much of a spectacle they can make out of the game, so the easiest solution. Again, I guess at this point in the game, they're running out of time, so like, I don't know, make them big, I guess. So we can fight on equal terms, I suppose. I guess I agree it's a little half-assed, and I don't really care for the ending I like how it's resolved, ultimately, especially in the case of it leading to the next games, but the whole thing where he's just like, my nightmares didn't go away, and they're like, we didn't say that it was going to, and I'm like, I caught onto that immediately when they first said it in the beginning of the game, so them revealing it, I'm like, yeah, they didn't. Like, I'm sorry, Kratos, I don't really feel that bad for you in this respect, you just didn't read the fine print of what this quest entailed. But Corey, how do you feel about the Ares and the end of the game?
So the fight, like the spider legs or crab legs, I don't understand. Like I didn't really like get it. I guess that.
Yeah, I just thought it looked cool. It didn't make sense to me, but it just looked neat.
Yeah, it was dope, but I was just like, okay, but why those specifically? Okay, but like the fight, like obviously, I knew this was coming. Like I already knew that you were going to become big and whatever. It's like, Rita, make my monster grow, and then you fight this dude, and the fight itself is not overly complicated, but like the best part to me of the final battle is the fight where you're keeping yourself from killing your kids, or killing your wife and kid. So you like that part is like so emotional, I suppose. Like that, it's very long-winded, of course, because holy shit, you have to fight copies of yourself for so long, and then like after that, Kratos gets the idea. He's like, oh shit, I'll just use the sword of whatever that thing I walked on earlier. Yeah. But because like Ares is like, I'm gonna take your powers away because I gave them to you, blah blah blah. But the fight itself is so different than everything in the entire game. Because like even the Minotaur, you fight him, he's huge, and you're fighting him at like the edge of like a walkway, and then you stun him and blah blah blah. And the Hydra, like they kind of, because the game itself doesn't have a lot of boss fights. It has 3 boss fights. It's the Hydra, the Minotaur, and Ares. And Ares is so different from those previous boss fights, so you're led to believe that this big dude, I'm going to be fighting him, and maybe I have to do like run around and shoot him with a ballista, pin his hand down, similar to like Demon Souls with the giant dragon. But it just makes you fight him as like a regular enemy that has a lot of health.
Yeah.
But that being said, like the second part of that is really cool. Like I like that part where like the building's collapsing. It kind of reminds me of when you fight the 2 Valkyries with your son in Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And he like turns into a bear and all that shit. And it's just like, the building's falling apart. You're in like time space or whatever. And like, you're clearly dealing with like magic beyond you. And then, they're like, all right, here's the last part. And the third part is like the easiest one, because it's basically handing the game to you. They're like, you're going to win. Like, unless you just set the controller down, there's no way you can lose this fight. But the first part, when I fought him, I was like, damn, man, I'm not doing any damage. And that's when I realized it's like, oh, the Hades thing. That just eats his health bar completely. So you just throw the Spartan on and just Hades, and he's just gone. So it's almost anticlimactic in a sense, because he's such a like important boss and an important character to the story. And I think I killed him faster than I killed like Cerberus. And so like at least the first phase, and then you get through the cool part where you're fighting in the chapel, and then like the second or the third part of it is, just kind of, do you want to see the credits? You're like, yeah, and it's for this being like the first of a franchise, obviously they didn't know, but it was going to span like many years forward. I think that it's a solid experience. The fight could be better. Like I think the Ares fight could have been a little bit more orchestrated, because it just became like, it wasn't really any different than fighting the jackals or the spinny dudes, like the blender guys or a Minotaur. He's just another dude that you're fighting, and I don't think that was as impactful, because like if you play the second one and the third one, like when you fight Zeus in the third one, like that is a very awesome fight, and they do some really cool stuff. And obviously those are future things, of course, where they can learn from the past games, of course. Well, and so when you're fighting Ares and you beat him, it's just like fighting an enemy that had a lot of health.
Were you trying to say something, Jordan?
Oh, I was just going to say, so this is from Santa Monica Studios, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where my gripes are just like, I don't know. I think they could have made the fight a lot better if you were playing Titan versus Titan, because they worked together on the video game War of the Monsters back in 2003, and that's 2 years before this. So
War of Monsters is really fun.
Yeah, and they have the idea of how these giant fights should have taken place with destructive environments and shit. So they had the ability, and they knew what they were doing 2003, 2 years after, while they're making this game.
You're fighting in a
so they could have
literally
have punched each other and gone through fucking parts of Athens destroying shit. Would have been way cooler.
Yeah. The only environment thing that happens is that you take the sword of Athens, and there isn't anything else. I didn't know they worked on War of Monsters. That game's really fun, and that would have been a much better battle. It's the thing is they're trying to set it up to be something that you haven't experienced yet in the entire game, but it ends up becoming the same thing that you have experienced in the entire game, in a weird way.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like they just wanted to be different, sort of thing. They could have made it a better spectacle. It was.
I do like the ending, though. I do like him taking the throne. I like that his blades of chaos become the blades of Athena or whatever. And despite what happens prior to that, I think the ending wrap up is pretty solid.
Yeah,
because it leaves the door open for sales numbers here.
Yeah. It leaves the door open, forward. But if the game had ended and there's only ever been one God of War, it still would have been a decent bow on the end of the story.
For sure.
Edwin, how do you feel about the end of the game with Ares?
So, because it's Pandora's box, and it was it'll give you the power to. I guess I should have paid attention more to that line. It was it'll give you the power to defeat Ares, but it's what technically I got what I expected. It was I thought it was going to do the opposite, where it was going to take Ares' powers away and stop making him gigantic. And then you both just fight as normal-sized human beings. But instead, it did the opposite and made you giants, and now you fight as two giants. But I thought the whole point is just the Pandora's box would take the power away from Ares, and then when you defeat him, it'll give the power to you. That's what I expected. But it's it's because I watched I've randomly seen clips of God of War. So I've seen what the future fights were, and later Gods of War, but I didn't know which games they were. So I didn't know which logic of fighting a giant monster was going to apply in this case. So I kind of had different expectations, but in the end, I still technically got what I expected. But that second phase where you just had to defend your wife and daughter, that part just didn't make any sense, because it's a God of War would have mind tricks. That just doesn't make any sense. That seems more
a god's a god.
Yeah, but it's just that. I was your power would be more related to your title, I guess. I would expect more from the Oracle or Athena to do something like that.
When he says it, he's there's many ways to break a man, be it through body or soul. So I think the through line they were going for is that war can be a physical thing, but also winning the mental physical war by breaking your opponent's will to fight by fucking with their mind, I guess, is how they were trying to justify that.
It was just weird, especially in the middle of what was supposed to be an epic battle. So it's just it's weird as this in the first phase it's just you're fighting Ares in a giant battle, then you're defending your family in a mind game, and then you go back to a giant Titan battle. So it's just a weird breakaway from the actual fight that you were doing. It's a little bit like the ending of a Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts, where it's you're still in the final part of the game, but it's multiple phases, and they're all different. But eventually, you get back to the way the first phase was. It's just weird. But it was kind of funny comparing it to games like that. But in the end, it was all right. It was not as annoying as the rest of the game. So it's just finally a calm ending to a really rough game.
Yeah. Well, and with that, that's God of War. So I guess we'll go into final thoughts. Give a score if you feel like it, but I guess I'm going to start because I have a couple things I want to say about the overall. And I also just want to comment on overall things about the game, like the graphics and the music and stuff. And again, remember, I played on original hardware. I didn't play the remaster. So I have already said many times throughout this episode, I don't really care for action games. I don't really. They have this weird momentum to them, to where if you play perfectly, it feels great, but if you fuck up, it takes all the momentum out of my sails, and I don't feel like continuing. I don't really care for the Blades of Chaos as a weapon. I think they're really cool, and how Kratos uses them in like Ragnarok and shit feels a lot better, because the weapon themselves, the blade's only at the end, and you're swinging around on a chain, but the whole chain does damage. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't feel as weighty or like satisfying to hit things with like this whippy chain thing. Because when you get the Sword of Artemis, I had fun with that weapon because it felt a lot more weighty. It felt like my attacks meant a lot more, and I was having more fun. I honestly used the sword more after I had gotten the sword than I used the Blades of Chaos. Because it just felt better to hit things. It felt like my attacks actually had weight behind them. Whereas the Blades of Chaos just swing, and like the executions with them are fine when he's actually stabbing people with them, but like when you're just swinging it around and the chains are just clipping through enemies doing damage, it's not very satisfying to me. So I didn't really care for that. There are a lot of moves in the game, but a lot of moves that I like forgot to use, so I didn't use like probably half of Kratos's like actual moveset. The enemies, while fun to fight at first, got a bit too tanky by the end of the game. Magic powers are fun to use, but you run out of that magic so fast, and you really want to save it for like tougher fights. Let's see, what else was there? I like the story. The story, I thought, little as it is, it really, I got what I wanted, because I could see the seeds that had been planted of the story that they are developing in 2018 Ragnarok, because already in the first game, Kratos regrets his decisions and wants to make up for his past or move on from his past. And like all the way back here, he already was tired of this like killing maniac he was before. So that was really nice to see. The graphics are a bit rough. From what I remember of the remaster, it looked fine. The remaster is pretty decent, but the original, and I think it had to do with the fact that obviously, I mean, this game still has a style to it, but it was still obviously, more human proportions and facial features and shit like that. So going for like a realistic design, the graphics are pretty dated, at least in the original version. A little rough to look at, but I mean, that's just a product of its age. I don't hold that against it too much. I really like the music, despite the fact I only really noticed it when I was watching the remaster, when I was writing the outline. Music is really great. Voice acting was pretty decent. I don't think anything was very weak. And of course, the guy who plays Kratos isn't the same guy who does 2018 Ragnarok, obviously, but the guy they had back now was still a pretty good voice actor. I liked him. Let's see. Level design was simple, so I never really got lost. The puzzles I never had trouble with. It was just the way you interacted with the puzzles confused me. I was always wondering whether or not I was doing the right thing, because some things just took way too long to do, so I felt like I was doing the wrong thing, and then I look it up and realize I'm doing the right thing. It's just really janky. That's aggravating. The settings of the game are really hit or miss. I like some of them, but a lot of them I just find really boring. I was expecting more boss fights. I'm sure they picked this up in later iterations, but I was like shocked when I beat Ares and I had realized that I'm like, man, we had one boss fight at the beginning of the game, one boss fight 3/4 of the way in, and then the final boss. I was like, that was really weird. I really thought I expected to be a lot more boss fights. Like, fuck, the much more story-focused 2018 Ragnarok had way more boss fights than this one did. And they're not even totally focused on combat. Let's see. Another thing that bothered me, it's just an aesthetic thing. Picking up the blood orbs is not satisfying. When you get collectibles like that, I want it to feel good to pick up. My example of that can be as easy as just referring to Mario. Picking up a coin feels good. Bling, and it makes a nice noise, and you like picking them up. Or something to even more in the PlayStation level. It's way more satisfying to pick up precursor orbs in the first Jak and Daxter. They all had really satisfying noises and sounds when you pick them up. Or picking up bolts in the first Ratchet and Clank. Whereas just like The blood orbs are just really soft. They just flow into you. They barely have a sound effect. I don't know. It wasn't satisfying collecting blood orbs. The pickups in the game are really lame. The fucking QTEs really got on my nerves at the end of the game. They became so fast and so precise, and the fact that they're random every time was really fucking with me to the point that I just stopped doing them outside of the necessary ones. We already bitched enough about the Architect's Tomb and Hades. I made my thoughts very clear on that. They just completely fail in level design at certain parts of this game. I don't hate this game. I really don't hate it. I did think the combat was pretty good, and if I just talked about the combat, it's pretty satisfying outside of a few small quirks. But taking the entire game as a whole package, I can see why it's popular. And I wouldn't even call this game like wholly bad, but out of all the monthly games we played, and not even talking about Pokemon or Halo since I played those previously, but Legend of Zelda, Resident Evil, I hadn't played those games, and after playing them, I have a desire to go back and play them again to do the stuff I didn't do, whereas with this game, I genuinely don't think I'll ever play it again. I won't have any desire to play it again because there's nothing there that would want to make me play it again. I would still want to go play God of War 2 and 3 just to experience them all once, but out of all the monthly games we played, I don't think I'll ever play God of War again. It didn't leave anything that I wanted to come back to, especially now that I absorbed the story. With that being said, I would be pressed to give this probably a 5 out of 10, all things considered. I think it's pretty average. I know I said at the beginning I got 9 out of 10s across the board, but I just don't agree. I think there's too many flaws with the game compared to everything else in the game. Just a lot of just like quirks and things that just don't work or aren't fun. Don't think the game's bad. I remember fighting them. When I take number scores, 5 out of 10 is average. That does not mean bad. It just means you're okay. 1 thumbs up. You don't do anything exceptionally well except maybe the combat, but everything else weighs down the combat so heavily that I can't bring myself to give it anything higher. I was thinking 4 out of 10, but that's below average, and I don't think it's quite that bad. It's just it has as much bad as it does good, so I'm going to sit it at a 5 out of 10. But I don't think I'd ever play it again. Jordan, what do you think of the first God of War?
So with the God of War series, it definitely has its ups, where it's slowly trying to get better as a game. This is the very first one we're talking about, so like the beginning of how it all began. It's kind of hard to get myself to, I guess, understand how I was back then, how I feel as of today. Like how we were talking about, you've got God of War, the remake, or the games that are already out, including Ragnarok, which had a fantastic story, and it was just really well driven with acting and all that stuff. And now I'm going back to one game where it's literally just running through hack and slash until you beat the game. And there's annoying puzzles here and there just a little bit, but I didn't feel like it was drawing me too much. I felt like, because everybody played the game, I didn't. And unfortunately, it just didn't feel like I missed anything. Even though I was watching somebody play the game entirely, I just felt like it wasn't like, oh shit, I should have tried this out, or that. It was just not impactful enough. It didn't feel like it grabbed me. The gaming graphics itself, probably, maybe back then if I was able to go back and see what 2005 graphics was across the board, maybe I could say there might be some sort of way of showing it may have been probably okay back then. I just can't see it now, even though with the remastered. The only thing that I was saying was good was the interactions and what you were doing with the bosses, which we only had 3 of them, and the last one was garbage. The first one was the coolest, the the Hydra fight, which was cool because you were seeing interactions with him throughout the entirety of that level. You were just seeing him, and he was destroying parts of the boat, and that was creating entries for you to go ahead further into the map, and that was cool. And it felt like they just kind of lost it through after that point when it's like, okay, now you're just going to fight enemies and more enemies and then more enemies, to the point where you're just like, okay, when do we meet the end of this? Because I just don't feel like there's really much happening. And yes, there's the story that it's kind of like bring you in of him accidentally killing his own family because of the power of his rage that he was being tricked by Ares. But it just didn't feel like there was really much to it. And the fighting mechanics, the use of his weapons, these Chaos Blades, and this is kind of the problem for me too, is I don't enjoy hack and slash games too much, just because, again, I'm more built on realism of when you hit something, it feels like it does something. As in, when you're hitting these characters, they're just like, okay, circle, now you finish them. The finishing part's cool, but just the constant swinging your blades around until you hit something, and then the orbs leveling up your moves, I feel like if you didn't really level up anything, you still would do okay. Like, it just didn't feel like it was weighing in a whole bunch, like, you need to level this shit up and it's going to gradually help you a lot. And I'm pretty sure it does, but when you run out of magic, then that shit doesn't really matter much, and then you're just swinging weapons around. And the amount of change in weaponry, there was really nothing there. So it just felt like you were using the Chaos Blades over and over and over, and enemies were... they were just the same kind of design, but they were just getting either more armor or they were just on fire. So I did felt like they kind of lost the originality of character creation after you've seen the gist of them, and then they were just throwing them in as you went. And then it was just the annoying platform gimmick of just, you can't fucking see the depth, you can't see where you're going, the swimming is annoying, the level trap system that they threw, they were creating things to just get in the way to prolong the game when they could have done something different. They could have taken it out and it made it shorter, but you would have known that the game through the entirety, from the beginning to the end, there wasn't anything issued there. It was just a short game, but it was good. This is now they just threw things in there because they just had to make the game long enough, I guess, for a certain amount of point. But, you know, for me, out of all of that together, including the music, which was good, I would probably say a 6.5 out of 10 for me. Just because, again, it was just one for me personally. And now, if you're talking about somebody that was like a fan of the God of War series, I'm not really that much into it too much, and because it just, for me, there's things how we're going off the ways of how the Greek mythology works. It was kind of just throwing me off a little bit, and again, I just was not into that type of series, so it didn't really mean much to me. But again, I'm trying to give it a good score, but again, with watching somebody play it throughout the entirety of it, I just can't seem to give it a good score, just that high of much as we've done in the previous games. So I'm like, I'll say 6.5 to 7. That's pretty much what I have.
All right. Well, Corey, what are your final thoughts about the God of War?
So I enjoy the God of War franchise, like, as a whole, and I've played all of them, and I really like Kratos as a character. I really like the setting. I love the controls. Outside of, like, obviously the nitpicky bullshit of platforming nonsense and balancing, blah blah blah. But if you look at it as like a whole game, to me, like, this one being the first one, not knowing that there's going to be an entire franchise established, I think it does a pretty good job at, like, bringing this, like, story to the forefront, and I really like just kind of like the atmosphere that it gives me. I like the combat is really fun. The level design is pretty good. It has a lot of ideas that you can see what it's drawing from, that they're just kind of creating like a new game. It's not just an action game. It's not just a Metroidvania. They're taking, like, aspects from things and kind of building their own adventure. And, you know, sadly, of course, like, you mentioned the Sword of Artemis, and we didn't even talk about it at all this entire time, outside of when you initially said that we acquire it. I used it a little bit, then I just went back to the blades. Like, it's a cool weapon, it's really dope, but, like, I just went back to the blades. There's a lot of things in the game that are like, hey, check this out, and you're like, oh, that's really neat, but then you go back to whatever you were doing. And so, like, obviously there is not necessarily like a draw to utilize all of the abilities that you have, because I didn't use the Gorgon at all. I only used the throwing of lightning if there was a stupid archer in the background that I couldn't hit. It was just Poseidon's Rage or Poseidon's Fury or whatever, and then the Hades army for the last boss. Like, I didn't use Hades for anything else really except for that. I might have used it like once or twice when I got the ability, but it's just like, use it on Ares. Okay. And the boss fights, like, it was surprising to me too. Like, I thought there was going to be more boss fights because it's a game that kind of is designed around, like, shouldn't you have boss fights? But as the games go on, there are more boss fights in the franchise. It's just, this is the first one. I think that I can see a lot of the like love that they put into the game and the idea of like establishing this world that they wanted to build, with the limitations that they had, and it's kind of a nice like start to finish story. Even if you were to be like, that's it, that's the only one you get, like it's still really cool and it really hits like all of the story beats that I would typically be looking for. But knowing that it's kind of a franchise that gets better with every single installment, I would probably do a 7 out of 10 on this one. I couldn't put the game down. Like I really enjoyed playing the game, despite the nonsense that happened at some points of the game. But I know, because I've played them all, that every game after this is just better than the one that's before it.
But is that fair to give it an increase? Like,
yeah,
if you're taking that, well, no, is that fair to take in consideration future entries when considering what score you'd give this game?
I mean, I guess like maybe not, because of like there's a lot of games out there that don't have like an entire franchise built off of it. But I do.
I mean, for example, I'm not going to sit here and give Titanfall 1 an increased score because Titanfall 2 was amazing.
Yeah, no, I feel you. But I would say like I think 7 out of 10 for me is pretty good, because I did enjoy the game a lot and I like this genre in general. So like it kind of like sits well with me because I actively seek these games out in general. So like I play Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, God Hand, Chaos Legion, like all of these like just beat 'em up games, and this one is just it's really fun for me. So
all right. I like I say, if that's what you think, that's fine. It's just like the way you said it. It's just like because it gets better, this one's good. I'm like, well, that doesn't track.
I think it's more of like knowing that they get better. Like I'm like going back to playing the first one. Like even though I played it like back in 2005, it's nice to just kind of get a refresher. It's like going back to play Super Mario on like Super Nintendo. You're like, this game's really fun, and then there's just like, and then everything that came after this, it's just like, I like 64, I like Sunshine, I like Odyssey, Galaxy, all that stuff. And so it's nice to go back and be like, wow, you guys did a pretty good job on the first one. Resident Evil, when we did that one, like that was a very rough time too. And I did enjoy it, even though it was rough. Like I understand the idea that they had. And it's kind of cool to just be like, oh, this is the seed, basically, that grew into like a crazy thing. Granted, Resident Evil, to be fair, kind of falls off in like later, and then they kind of rebrand it. But I think God of War is a really interesting like project because of the way that it increases in quality with each installment.
Yeah, I can agree with that. At least it does get better. At least I hope it does with 2 and 3. I know it definitely did with 2018 and Ragnarok.
Yeah, for sure.
Edwin, final thoughts on God of War.
So it's kind of like a situation that I have with about older games compared to newer ones. So like there's like some situations where I have a really critical opinion about older games when I've played more recent ones. Like when I first played the first Resident Evil, regardless of the fact that it was like the supposed better version, the Resident Evil 1 remake, because I played like all the newer ones, Resident Evil 4, 5, a little bit of 6, 7, 8, all that. So it's like I would have a really critical opinion about the first one because I prefer the newer one better. But I can't really do that in this situation, which I do like, because regardless that I played the 2018 one, even if it was for the small amount of time that I did, because I never completed it. I don't remember a lot of it, so I won't have a more honest opinion without comparison about the first one. So when it comes to this first one, yes, it's very annoying, but I have played like a bunch of other stuff, and I prefer more of a Dynasty Warriors action game compared to this one. But I can see why people loved this game in the past before. I probably would like it more, considering my library in the past was much smaller than it is now. So the fact that this kind of game blew up because of the similar violence and the similar violence that it has, when the same way that like Mortal Kombat got super popular because of how violent it was. It's just a very different thing and experience back then. So it's like it's very obvious, like the violence, the blood, the gore, and all that, all the extreme action would be liked, and like it's just a very aggressive game to play. So it's like so besides like all the things that I complained about, I do like it. It's just not exactly my kind of game. So I would probably put it like around a 6 because it is very annoying to like try and get through everything. It's also like a weird scaling in power. It's like you're pretty much a demigod, but you can be grounded by even the most basic enemy, which just doesn't make a whole lot of sense compared to how they like portray Kratos. It's just really weird. And like you're just this hulking mass that can defeat just proven to defeat gods, but it's just like the same thing that's the same size as you can just flatten you. So it's just like it's hard to believe that's like, hey, it was like I can't beat you, and it's really hard for me to push statues around. But it's like I can still beat a god. It's like I can, just trust me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm glad that I played it, and it's good and bad enough that I liked playing it for the very first time and starting the first one instead of like any other one. So that way it's just like a more unique and focused experience on what the first one is, that I would play the other ones as well. But I did not like it enough that I would actually go back to playing this first one possibly ever again.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with that one. I share a lot of your same sentiments, and a lot of them do come from like subjective feels. I just don't care for these kinds of games for a lot of the same reasons. You don't seem to like them either, so we're pretty much on the same page on that one.
Yeah,
It's like
playing Devil May Cry.
Yeah, well, it's like the closest I came to liking an action game has been Bayonetta, and it still couldn't pull me in fully with that either. So I don't know. The only action game I've ever played and liked all the way through was Dante's Inferno, and that's just because that I was just so absorbed with all the crazy shit in that game. I just wanted to see more of it.
Yeah.
So I let everything else fall by the wayside.
Yeah, I like the story and combat of Dante's Inferno more, even though it's like a somewhat similar idea. But it's like I did like the story that God of War had in this first one. It's different than what I expected. It's a lot more interesting. So it's also what's like gonna pull me towards all the other games.
Yeah, because you're trying to figure out like, well, what's Kratos going to do now? Because it's like he was cursed and all that shit, and then you're like, it continues over, and then obviously knowing that in 2018, where he's like in an entirely different pantheon, you're like, well, what happened? Why is he not in the other one anymore? And it's really fun, but yeah, definitely it's the first section of God of War is just violence and anger, and then
it's just also funny. It's like because like now it's like a whole bunch of games like what God of War is about. It's about killing other gods. So it's just seeing the story play out, and the first one is like cool. They made him the new God of War, and they welcome him into Mount Olympus. You literally just invited a murderer into your home.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be fair. The other Greek gods don't exactly have a fantastically clean track record if we take into account the mythology. So all the Greek gods are kind of assholes. Actually, I did want to. That reminds me. I did want to say I do like how the story is sad because it's a tragedy. You know, like 90% of Greek myths are tragedies. Yeah, it's like 90% of Greek myths are tragedies, and this just obviously, despite Kratos being a completely fictional character, and they're inserting him into the Greek mythology to like shake things up. He fits in well, essentially. He doesn't seem like an OC. He just got isekai'd into this fucking universe, and he's just part of the the fucking mythology of Greece. Like, they did a really good job of integrating him and how stories in Greek mythology work. I thought it worked really well, and I can at least compliment them for that. So, anyways, but I think now that we've gotten all laid out, that is God of War, and I suppose I will turn it over to Jordan to take us out for the episode.
Thank you again, Udon. I guess we'll be wrapping it up. I wanted to thank Udon for hosting today's special episode and looking forward.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we've mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.